Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blazers Uprise post-game show. The Blazers almost pull out another crazy win. The Grizzlies just take over there at the end, the last couple minutes. It's getting a little nerve-wracking. The Blazers have to bench Shaden Sharp at the end to make sure they don't win. I want to hear all of your thoughts on that. Tori is at a rec league game right now. Hopefully I can figure out how to let him join the stream here in a little bit. And I am also on parent duty tonight by myself, so I might have to interact with my kids a little bit. So I apologize for that. But Blazers end up losing, but very, very fun game to watch. They just competed, man, and it was really, really cool to see these guys like take another good team down to the wire and just scare the whole opposing arena. It was a lot of fun. But before we get more into the game, let's thank BetOnline. BetOnline has been a good sponsor for the Blazers Uprise videos and post-game shows all season long. If you are into gambling, use code BLEAV on BetOnline and you get a 50% reward on your deposit. And it's just a good site to gamble on. And we've got playoffs in the NBA coming up, MLB baseball, the Masters, a lot of big sporting events going on. So hope you all check that out if you are into that kind of thing. And thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring us. All right, so chat, I gotta know, what did you think of Chauncey's decision to sit Sharp at the end? The Blazers at one point, I believe, took a 5-point lead at 101-96 when they took Cronin out, or they took Sharp out of the game. Are you guys fine with that? Were you happy because it ended up Memphis went on a big run at the end, or are you to the point with Sharp that you want him to get those opportunities to show that he can take over in the clutch and all that kind of stuff? We might have still lost anyway, but that would have been a really good experience for him. So I don't know how I feel. I obviously didn't want them to win this game. As Raiden says, the loss is much more important. But I do, like, Sharp's game against Minnesota wasn't like that insane or anything, but it was just so impressive the way he led the team in the last few possessions. And so I was kind of looking forward to seeing that again, but it's also, I get it, like we don't want to win. So it's kind of crazy that we're even having this discussion with the fact that we only played 8 players tonight and 4 of them just joined the team within the last week. So big picture, Eric Olson, I agree. It's just, we might not have won anyway, but man, this team, you cannot mess around with these guys. Skylar Mays is really nice point guard. Had a wonderful game. Sharp was, of course, really, really fun to watch. Manaya just joins the team a few hours ago, and I thought he played well. But yeah, it's just this team has some fight in him. Even like Shaq Harrison, who's not like the most skilled player, but he'll fight you, man. He'll give it his all. He'll leave it all on the floor. Jabari Walker, as Aeromancer said, also hit some big shots in this game and looked pretty nice. And then okay, so Trevin has the exact. So they took Sharp out with 9 minutes left, and 6 minutes later, the Blazers had gone on a reverse 2-17 run. So Memphis scored 17-2 after Sharp left the game. 9 minutes is still, I think that, or 8 minutes left. Yeah, it's still a long time to just sit sharp. Um, but yeah, then you watch the Timberwolves go into Brooklyn tonight and beat the Nets. Um, this, I mean, there's a little element of teams are just taking us lightly right now, and they're not really thinking they have to play very hard. But that's what was impressive about what happened after halftime of this game. Because at halftime, the Blazers had come back from 19 down to cut it to 4. It was feeling a lot like the Minnesota game where, like, you do not want to mess around and let the Blazers stick around because Skylar Mays and all these 10-day contract guys and Sharp and Jabari Walker, they're not gonna want to miss shots or like they wanted to come in and win this game and when you have a team full of guys like that who just compete and give it their all, it's kind of annoying when you're a good team because you just feel like you should be crushing them and nothing's going right. But yeah, this is actually kind of the perfect outcome for Portland because they showed a lot of heart and it was fun to watch. It wasn't like the 40-point blowout to the Kings. And then ultimately the Kings or the Grizzlies come back and win. They almost covered a freaking 17.5 point spread, I think it was. 17.5 point spread. They almost ended up covering it. But Skylar Mays and Jabari Walker hit back-to-back threes. So, yeah, this is one of those tanking games where, it sucks because, Dame's not playing and Anthony's not playing, Jeremy's not playing. Sharp gets benched at the end. But it's still cool when you watch these guys compete. And I think you're seeing, this is one of the reasons why I get so frustrated with some of the moves, or lack of moves, I should say, throughout the season. Like times where we needed a big man or we had injuries, things like that. Where were these pickups to help this team win games like a Skylar Mays? Where was that pickup when Dame goes down for 3 or 4 weeks? When Anthony goes down for 3 or 4 weeks? Like, why didn't we pick up guys like that help us win then when we're actually trying to win? And then after we're done and tanking and giving up on the season, then we pick up these guys. And that's frustrating to me as a fan because these kind of guys, you need to find those diamonds in the rough. You need to find some guys who can provide some depth. And this team just let this roster just flounder with injuries and lack of size at certain positions, lack of ball handlers at times throughout the season. So as Trevor Williams says, I'm starting to think tank for Wemby was the plan all along. Quite honestly, that's the only explanation as to why they didn't have better center depth, why they didn't have capable backup point guard when one of Dame or Anthony was out. So, yeah, that's the only thing I can think of, and why the trades at the deadline were very underwhelming. They had to have been figuring or planning on tanking, but it's crazy to go back to the 10-4 start and then to say, like, at some point a short time later this team or this organization would have switched to tank mode when they had a legit shot at home court advantage and all this stuff. So it's just kind of weird to me that if that was the approach, like the hot start, the 10-4 start didn't change that. The fact that the West was so jumbled and right there for any team that went on a run to take it. I mean, if we get Wembanyama, it all changes everything. So, I mean, at least, yeah, they picked a lane, like Colonel Pancake says. So yeah, that'll be cool if they actually do it. But Yeah, I mean, short of that though, it's like it gives me a promise in one way because I don't think this team is that far off if you make good moves. Um, yeah, as Eric Olson points out, the front office also promised us we weren't going to tank this year. We weren't tanking. We were trying to win with Dame. So I think we owe it to him. Oh, I keep saying this, but I think we owe Dame a legit chance where the whole season they make good moves. They pick up players when they have injuries. They find trades that actually improve the team instead of projects or free agents to be that probably won't be on the team next year or whatever. Um, so hopefully that's the mindset next season. And I understand it. I mean, Wembanyama's looking like a maybe a once in a like a decade type prospect. And in fact, once since it's almost or it will be 20 years since LeBron, so we're talking 2 decades now. Um, and so uh, I get it. And I saw a comment from an anonymous Western Conference executive who was mad that they won as many games as they did this season because Wembanyama is that good. Um, so uh, yeah, I mean, I get it this season, but if this continues next year, I mean, it might just be that Cronin's not that good too. That's also a possibility. Maybe he just isn't good at identifying these things. The hope is now that he will be into his second off season. He's had 2 trade deadlines, 1.5 full seasons in charge. That maybe he can get a little bit of improvement to his mindset and his abilities as a GM. Get some experience there, and hopefully go forward as a better GM. But I really hope that is the plan for next year, is that we identify these needs for the team, like length and just toughness and someone to set up the offense and things like that. And we don't bring in players like Ryan Arcidiacono, who it's like not even an NBA level player. And we find guys who actually can help us contribute to winning, not just finding a player that fits a specific mold. So, yeah, just, I mean, like, if we had Skylar Mays at the trade deadline instead of Ryan Arcidiacono, are we maybe in the play-in right now? Like, that sounds so weird to say, but, like, if we just made a couple of good moves like that, um, like, brought in someone, and that's the other thing that signing someone does. It brings you, especially from the G League or like a player that isn't in the NBA already. They come in and they have that fire usually, and they want to prove themselves, so they just play as hard as they possibly can, and I just think that can be a boost sometimes. Like, it doesn't even have to be the greatest player. Like, Skylar Mays isn't gonna be like a starting level point guard in the NBA or anything like that. But like, guys like that can come in and just completely energize your team. And for months, this team just was in a funk, and they had good vibes earlier in the season, and they just couldn't fix that. They started losing, and then all of a sudden everything just went against them. So yeah, sometimes just making a move like that helps. And it's not necessarily because the types of moves the Blazers have made now the last couple of years is getting players that are kind of like projects or players that haven't had the best situations on their previous team, have had attitude problems, or had issues with coaches and weren't playing, things like that. Those aren't the kind of players that normally I'm talking about. We need players that have that grit and that determination and aren't going to make excuses for why they weren't playing or what they do. When they get that opportunity, they're going to take it and run with it. And so that's one of the main jobs of a GM and for the assistant GMs is to identify those type of players. So Hopefully that this little late season bloom, and you can't take too much of it because people put up stats all the time on bad teams, but you have to be able to identify those players, fill out your roster, and I want a roster next year that has a capable third point guard, whether that's Skylar Mays or the equivalent of what he's doing right now. We just need that type of player who doesn't have to play, but when he gets his opportunity to play due to an injury or maybe there's some other reason why, that guy comes in and does his job. So, that's going to be really important this offseason is to identify a backup ball handler if Anthony and Dame are still the starting backcourt. And then also we need some of those players that are big too. So like some power forward size and some center size players. So try to find those kind of players in the either draft or trades or free agencies or whatever. So hopefully this summer is when we start to see all that kind of stuff. Eric Olson says, imagine if we had Scoot as the backup point guard. Yeah, I just think like at some point that's getting to be too many guards and that might be kind of trouble. Let's see. All right, let me just look at the box score. So the Blazers lost 119 to 109. They get outscored 23-14 in the fourth. The offense just completely bogged down in the fourth quarter once Sharp left. And even before he left the game, there were several possessions where they were fighting the shot clock and had to basically have Sharp try to bail him out, and he wasn't necessarily hitting all of those shots, but he had some incredibly nice finishes driving, which is really promising for the future. He finished with 20 points, was 8 of 18 from the field, just 2 of 8 from 3, 2 of 4 from the free throw line. Hopefully he gets his free throw shooting a little better. But he did have 8 rebounds and 6 assists, and including a couple of really nice passes in this game. Just really liked what I saw from Sharp despite the missed shots. Just thought he was, I mean, he's just going to be great. He has so many star qualities, and just really good to see him play well once again. Would have liked to see him, like I said, finish this one out. And I wish there could have been both. I wish we could have guaranteed we lost and also watched him close this game out, play like 36 minutes or whatever, and we could have seen him at the end. But I would have loved to known if you could just look at that in an alternate universe, would we have won this game if we kept him in? Because that is how crazy it is that we're talking about this, like giving Sharp this opportunity, but then also not letting him get too much of an opportunity because he's too good, so that, as Colonel Pancake says, that provides hope. And he was guarding Ja a lot during this game. Didn't think he did a terrible job. But yeah. Cody Franklin, he's not 6'7". We did the same thing with Anthony. Come on. I want to thank Brian Tadovich for a donation, $2 donation. What's up, Brian? Thank you for that. He says, what would it take to get Embiid? Embiid he's just one of those, it's just, I don't know. I mean, we have maybe the assets to get him, but one, he'd have to pretty much ask out because I don't think they're trading him unless he demands a trade. And then he'd probably also try to leverage going to a certain place he wants to go to. He said in the past that Portland isn't on that list or whatever. but yeah, I don't think the 76ers are trading him. But let's just say for the sake of your question, he was available. In my opinion, it would take Anthony Sharp and probably still 3 or 4 first round picks on top of that at the minimum just to get in the conversation. So it's just going to be either we're not getting him or he's not getting traded, or it would be very painful to see what we'd have to give up to get him because yeah, I mean he's likely to win the MVP. And yeah, it's gonna take Anthony, it's gonna take Sharp and multiple first round picks in my opinion. I don't think there's any way around keeping both of them on the roster. And or one of the two. I don't think there's any way to keep one of the two in the trade. The 76ers would just hold out. But yeah, so I mean, maybe if Harden goes to Houston or leaves them in free agency, maybe Embiid's looking around that he wants out. But yeah, it's to the point where, I mean, it's going to take one of the biggest trade packages in NBA history to get him. And then to watch like Anthony and Sharp become stars in Philly and stuff, that might be painful. But I mean, having Embiid and Dame though with Jeremy Grant, it's like that'd be crazy too though. So I mean, I get it if the Blazers did make that their all-in move. It's just like everything I'm hearing from the Blazers is they love Anthony and they love Shaedon Sharp, and they're not going to do anything to mess that up short of a star like that become available. So if Embiid becomes available, like obviously the Blazers would probably be in on it, but they're not going to actively trade either of those guys, I don't think. Now, another side of that is with their contract situation, they might have to deal one of those two in any trade they make, just depending on how much salary is coming back in. So yeah, we'll see. But I know they're really high on both Anthony and Sharp as like the future after Dame's gone, and I don't think they're going to just move on from that unless they're getting a no-brainer player in return. At least just even for trading one of those two. Wampet asked, what would you think of Evan Turner coming in as assistant coach? I'd be fine with it. He can't be any worse than some of our assistants right now. So yeah, I'd be all for it. I don't know why he only coached. He was an assistant with Boston for 1 year and then he stopped. But yeah, I don't know if he wants to get back into coaching or not. But yeah, I wouldn't mind having him back as a coach. Smart player. Almax says, wouldn't other teams bid for Embiid? Yeah, sure. But, I mean, you look at Sharp and Anthony and picks, like, that's why it would take that. But what other teams do you think could have players that would want Embiid that could match that type of star package in a trade for? Because if they lost Harden, I don't see them really going for a like staying relevant right now. Like they're probably going to be full rebuild mode. So I know they already have Maxey, but getting basically a star level backcourt to go along with Maxey, that's a good start to their thing, and they could trade one of those three and get a bunch of picks or something. Yep. What's up, Chase? How you doing? Yeah, I don't know if they have the best trade package in the league, but I mean that's pretty good, and it's a lot better than they've had in the past. Yeah. Trevor Williams says we need to stop thinking we were going to get the pie in the sky superstar. We're going to have to get lucky and find another star via the draft. Yeah, I mean, I'm just answering the question. I started off by saying Embiid, I don't think he gets moved. So I don't think that's going to be the case where we make a big trade like that. But I do think that, I don't know, if they're, I do see a scenario where they do use the picks and as much salary as possible other than um, Dame and Sharp and Ant to get that player that way. Um, it's a lot tougher if you're not giving up good players and you're just giving up picks, but that's why it's crucial to get as high as possible in the draft, because outside of number one, which isn't going to be traded, all those other picks are going to have a lot of trade value. What are the lottery odds looking like, asks Almac? It's looking like we have a 10.5% chance as long as we lose out. So 10.5%. We'll see. Yeah, it's still most likely, if you just look at it pick by pick, seventh pick is still the most likely outcome of having the fifth pick. But there's a greater chance you move up than down to, and I don't know. It's just, or not down completely, but down to 7. There's still 42% chance you move up. Yeah. 90% chance of picks 1 through 7 if we lose out. Yep, so pretty good chance. But that's the same chance we have opposite of moving up to 1. So, yeah, this team isn't going to lose to the Spurs. I agree, but got to find a way. Like, they might not play Sharp in that game. I think that's why they picked up yet another player today. And why you saw Sharp sit out there. I could definitely see them sitting out Sharp. Now, a couple of those other things could play out. There could be, the Magic could still win a game. The Pacers could win. I think they might play tomorrow. The Wizards could win another game somehow. So yeah, like, things could still play out to where it doesn't matter if they win or lose. It just sucks that that's the next game because, yeah. Blazers fan says Magic have no for sure wins. Yeah, no team has no or for sure wins. I mean, I didn't see the final, but right before I went live, the Nuggets were losing to the they end up losing. Yeah, the Nuggets lost by 21 to the Rockets tonight. So, like, you probably wouldn't have said that was you probably would have said that's a for sure win, right? So, yeah. So, So I see lots of questions about the draft. Damon Stoudemire got the job at Virginia Tech. Didn't he go to Georgia Tech, or did he leave Georgia Tech already? So in terms of the Blazers, yeah, Georgia Tech. Obviously, if they get one, they're taking Wembanyama, and I don't think they're trading it. If they get 2 through 4, I think there's a much greater than 50% chance they're moving that pick, and they could either trade down a few spots, pick up some assets that way, or use it in a big trade. But that value of that pick is going to be much more valuable than it was last year. If they fall to 6 or 7, I'm not sure what they'll do. They could take Jarvis Walker or something like that. That's probably the player that makes the most sense for them to take, just team structure wise. But yeah, who knows if he's available there at 6 or 7. But yeah, I think they're probably going to try and move it a lot just because of the value of it. Because last year, it turned out that pick didn't have a ton of value in terms of what they were looking for. The pick had a lot of value in terms of maybe if you traded it, getting additional picks. Like number 11 went for 3 future firsts. They weren't the greatest first round picks, but yeah. Maybe you just stockpile your assets that way, and then it doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter what happens. Because you'd have like with the Bulls pick, because you'd have a bunch of other pick. I'm not sure when Torrey is coming back. He's at his rec game right now, so he'll be here whenever he gets home and is ready to come on. So hopefully I can do it. He showed me how to add him to the stream earlier today. We've never done it live though, so we'll see how that goes. All right, I'm gonna do a tankathon sim. As always with me, I don't know how to do it to where I put it on the screen, so I'll just have to play it out. So yeah, Blazers are back alone in 5th by a game. 1 win in the win column above all of Washington, Indiana, and Orlando, who all have 3 games remaining, just like the Blazers. The Blazers play the Spurs, the Clippers, and the Warriors. So basically two very losable games and 1 game that they're going to have to really tank hard. Looking at the Wizards schedule, they have the Hawks, the Heat, and the Rockets. So the Rockets, the last day of the season, I think with that win tonight by the Rockets, the hope would be that the Spurs and the Rockets are still close enough in the standings to where they're both trying to lose, so the Wizards could win that game. That might be an ultimate tank-off game. What was the game a couple of years ago with I think it was it the Clippers and the Thunder, where they they basically both tried to tank like the entire game because the OKC got the Clippers pick if it was, so like the Clippers didn't want to lose. I don't remember what happened, but it was like just an awful game. And I think that might be the case with that Wizards, the Wizards versus Rockets game there at the end of the season. That's on the final day of the season on Sunday. Indiana's got their final 3 games are New York, Detroit, and New York. So they have the Detroit Pistons. They could very well win that game, but the problem is Detroit is now locked up the number 1 lottery odds after tonight. So they are completely locked into their standings. I believe the Hornets are as well. So 1 and 4 is locked up. So 2 and 3 are still. So Detroit might be trying to win that game, and the Pacers might be trying to lose on purpose. We'll see how that goes. Because right now, 3-way tie has them all at 7.5% chance for 6 through 8. So hopefully that's not a 4-way tie with 5 through 8, because that's going to be a mess, and there'll be like coin flips and all kinds of garbage to determine who's 5th, who's 6th, who's 7th, who's 8th, and then each team has pretty much equal odds. And then the Magic finished with Cleveland, Brooklyn, and Miami, all teams fighting for playoff positioning right now. Hopefully one of those games ends up like maybe the Miami game. Maybe they're locked into their seeding in the play-in going into that last game of the season, and they rest everyone. The Heat are known to rest players and stuff a lot, so hopefully that would be the case. Just scary to think about that. Blazers. This is the problem with the win the other day. Yeah. And no, I'm not gonna lie. I don't lie. So, what's up, TC Sports Legend? How you doing, man? All right. So let's do the sim. We could also do one later when Tori gets here. All right, going through it. At number 14, we have Toronto, so they stay there. 13, Minnesota's pick goes to Utah. 12, Chicago's pick goes to Orlando. 11 is OKC. 10, Dallas keeps their pick. At number 9, we have Orlando falling one spot to 9. At 8, we have the Pacers falling one spot to 8. At 7, we have the Portland Trailblazers falling 2 spots to number 7. Once again, their most likely spot, once again, for the second straight season. At 6, we have the Charlotte Hornets falling 2 spots. At 5, the Houston Rockets fall 3 spots down to 5th. That means the top 4 we have Utah, Washington, San Antonio, and Detroit didn't move down, so those are the 4. Yeah. At 4, we got Utah, so they moved up 5 spots to that 4th position. At 3, you have the Washington Wizards. That leaves Detroit and San Antonio, I think, for the top 2 spots. At number 2, we got San Antonio, and then Detroit stays number 1 and wins the lottery. Wembanyama, Cade Cunningham, etc. Duran Ivy. Interesting team. But yeah, number 7. So 7's tough because in my mind there's pretty clear cut top 6. Obviously if Asar or Jarris falls to 6 or to 7, I'd consider taking one of them. But in my mind, Wemby, Scoot, Miller, the Thompson twins, and Jarris are my top 6. Whitmore is like my clear number 7, but I think, yeah, that's tough. Whitmore, it's going to depend on measurements in my mind. If he's big enough to play both forward spots, I definitely take him there. But I want to see his measurements. And then, but yeah, I have Hendricks next on my big board, so that's not really too big of a reach. But I'd definitely try to trade down a couple picks and see if you could still get Hendricks. Maybe there's a team that really likes Whitmore or another player there, and I think maybe that pick would still have some good value. But maybe that's why you trade down a little bit, pick up some, maybe, you trade down just a few spots, pick up another asset, and maybe you still get Hendricks and like another player from another team. Yeah. But yeah, Hendricks is a really good fit on this roster. So yeah, I wouldn't be mad if we just took him. But I'm not trading down for Leonard Miller because I mean it depends. There's still so much. These scenarios are tough because there's so much stuff changes. Like this time last year, like so many things changed between the draft. Even up until the day of the draft, we didn't even know who Orlando was taking. And a lot of people thought one day before the draft that Jabari was going to go 1, and then all of a sudden he's going. Like they take Banchero, and the odds all changed and stuff. So it also depends on what the order is, like who's around us and stuff like that. Um, there could also be trades that affect draft positioning and things like that. I don't think we have the assets, G. Wilkers, to move up into the top 5. I don't know how we do that, or I don't understand why we do that. Maybe you trade up from 7 to 6 to get Jarris if that's really your guy, but yeah, you can't. The Blazers don't really have the type of players needed to move up. Yeah. Also, I mean, throughout the entire draft process up until a couple days until the draft, everyone pretty much unanimously had Jaden Ivey as the 4th best prospect, and then you started to hear that the Sacramento Kings were maybe going to take Keegan Murray. So that also, stuff like that changes something too. I mean, someone could fall in love with Asor and take him higher than a men or whatever. Like, we don't know yet. We still have workouts, combine measurements, all that kind of stuff to see this kind of stuff. Gar Ben asks, so I missed a bunch of the combo. Even if we lose the next 3-2, do we not have a chance at the 5th spot? No, we are guaranteed the 5th spot if we lose the last 3. So if they lose the last 3, yes. But the problem is our next game is against the San Antonio Spurs. They're neck and neck with the Rockets in the standings. So they're not going to want to win that game. We're not going to want to win that game. So if we win that game, then all of a sudden we need 3 other teams to all lose one of their final games, or win one of their final games. So, so you got to get 4. You have to have either 3 teams win 1 game out of their last 3, or you have to just lose out. So, I mean, it's definitely possible to win against San Antonio and still not have that hurt us, but they lost that 1 game cushion when they beat Minnesota on Sunday. So, but yeah, that's all we have to do is lose 3 more games. But the other 2 games should be easy to lose. Garben also asks, what's up with Reddish? Are we getting rid of him? I'm not opposed. I mean, I don't know. I could see them still believing in him and maybe even have promised him or worked out some sort of contract already. But I could also see them just moving on. In my opinion, some of these players have, if they can keep them for cheap, I don't think they'd be opposed to it. But I think the whole point of the trade deadline was bringing in a bunch of players that they could easily move on from and still avoid the tax or whatever. So, what's up, Tori? So yeah, I think that'll probably be the case. Is that I don't know. I could see them moving on from pretty much everyone except for maybe Thibault, just because, of course, this team needs defensive specialists as much as possible. But Bot asks, is there any avenue for us to move on from Nurk, or are we rocking with him for now? I think it's going to be... I think it's either 2 things. One, we need his salary for a trade because there's only like 5 or 6 tradable contracts. Even less when you don't include Dame. But obviously there's only a couple tradable contracts. So if we're talking about getting an OG or a Mikal Bridges or someone like that, you almost have to have Nurk go out. So it's not a case of I don't think they're looking to move him, but they're kind of stuck in a situation where they might have to. But also I think they will try everything they can to improve the team without moving any of their starters, and then just hopefully, or at least their 4 starters, and then try to improve that small forward spot with the remaining assets they have. But they're not going to just salary dump Nurk, and they're not just going to trade him along with assets for a marginal improvement or a center that they have to give up assets for on a worse contract. So they're not gonna do that either just to get rid of him. So I think there is a good chance that he's back, but there's also a good chance that even if they wanted to have him back, he's not going to be under contract. AJ asks if we traded for OG, is there a chance he would stay here? I mean, yeah, the Blazers would be able to offer him more money than any other team. But here's the problem because I think there's a realistic chance the Blazers could get, if they wanted to, OG and Claxton this summer. And you might have to overpay for both. But let's just say we got like the 4th pick or whatever. So like you use one of them between Nurk and Nas would match both of them. So let's just say Nurk, Nas, Keon, and then you have the 6th pick or the 4th pick or whatever the lottery pick comes in, the Knicks pick, and then you could change the protections on the Bulls pick and trade 3 additional first-round picks in the future, right? So we're talking 5 first-round picks to go, including 1 high lottery pick and, the contracts to match. So I don't know what would go where. Say you sent the 6th pick for OG, right? And then you gave like 4 firsts for Claxton. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just saying like this is a scenario where we basically give up our future, but also make it like overpay so we for sure get that. But then you still have Anthony and Sharp, but you're adding the defensive OG and Claxton. So you would have Dame, Anthony, OG, Jeremy, Claxton with Sharp off the bench, I guess, or maybe you could talk about whatever. So that 6 core is insane. Like I put that top 6 up against like any team in the league, pretty much. Maybe outside like the Suns, or depending on what a couple of other teams do. So that's insane. You just have to fill out the roster, make good moves to get 7th, 8th, 9th men in the rotation. Claxton is really good defensively, kind of limited in other areas, but defensively he excels. So we'd have like a crazy good lineup that should be a good defensive lineup, and it's got scoring. So we'd still be like a top 10 offense with good defense. But I'm not saying I would do that, nor do I think it would necessarily take that much to get all of them. I'm just saying like I think they're going to look to do that because then they could justify giving up their future because they still have Sharp, right? So he's still their future, but they improved the team greatly without having to give those guys up. And so I think those kind of moves would be ideal. Now the problem that I was getting to is, let's say you made that move, both OG and Claxton are both OG can opt out after 1 year, and Claxton is on 1 more year. So the problem is if you resign them. Tori points out that OG and Claxton are both young enough to fit in with the Simons Sharp core too. But the problem is when you resign him, like how much is OG gonna cost? 25, 30 million, like Grant did, and then Claxton's probably gonna be up in the 20 million range as well. So you're talking about the the problem with that scenario is Jody willing to pay what it takes to keep that team together for as long as it does, and then how do the new rules affect that team? Because if they're in the second upper tax thing where um, they can't make moves, or they don't have the MLE then on top of that, I think then that might kind of hamstring them. So I don't know if they would even put themselves in that position, even if that trade was available for, say, half the first that I mentioned. Um, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that was on the table, if they would take it, knowing that that's most likely the best case scenario. Uh, so yeah, that's going to be the situation, but I don't think there's any way that Portland could get much better than that without trading Anthony or Sharp. So I'm just talking about if they decide not to. Yeah. DJ Vega asks McHale and Claxton for number one if we got the pick. No way, man. Do not trade number one. Do not trade number one, man. Yeah, that's you can't do it. Wembanyama is just too special. I actually thought about it. For Giannis and Embiid and those kind of players, but I mean, every time I watch Wembanyama, I'm like, no way you can trade this guy, dude. Like, you can't. The guy shot a 3-pointer and put back dunk his own 3-point shot. Like, who does that? Like, it's crazy. Yeah, maybe Giannis, but yeah, I don't know. Dude, you can't trade him. Now, if it's number two, the number two pick, and you could get McHale and Claxton, I mean, then we're talking. That's one of the things that's important too, with not just getting the first pick, but second, third are going to have that kind of trade possibilities because just of the star power of some of the players there available, maybe even the fourth pick too. So 2 through 4 is going to have insane value. I don't know if it's enough to get McHale and Claxton, but I would definitely consider moving them in that situation. But yeah, I think if we got 6th or 7th, like in that tankathon we did, I definitely think Nurk and Keon in the 6th pick for like Claxton and Dorian Finney-Smith. I don't know if the Nets would pass that. Because Dorian Finney-Smith hasn't been that good for us, but I think he would be better in his role here because they have a lot of similar players with McHale and on their roster right now. So, yeah, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I would need I don't even think any team would have I don't think I would take like 21st from OKC to trade Wembanyama at this point. But yeah, moving up would still help us a lot. I know they passed on 2 firsts for Dorian Finney-Smith, but I think this summer they might just change it. I don't think they're worried about trading Claxton. I don't know. See, this is why I target Claxton a lot in trades, is because he does have that low contract. And even if it's just for 1 year and then it goes way up, it's still good value, and it's easy for the Blazers to trade. The problem is the Blazers can't really just go out and and get a bunch of centers because they just don't have the contracts to match. And a lot of the ones that Nurk could match, like say Miles Turner, you'd probably have to give up multiple firsts or that pick, like you're giving up Nurk and the sixth pick or whatever. Um, and I think that's way too much to give up for a marginal upgrade. Rip City asked, what are the Nets even doing, rebuilding, trying to contend? They're for sure trying to contend because most of their future picks are still owed to Houston. So all their picks, they have a lot now, but they're all other teams' picks. So it makes no sense for them to tank because then Houston benefits from that. So they're going to keep trying to win. So yeah, they're not just going to completely tear it down. But if they still had McHale and other players, and I think they could replace Claxton and still be fine. But and they'd have Nurk obviously in that situation. But Claxton also allows us to match without giving up Nurk, and then we could have Nurk for like the OG trade or whatever. But yeah. Mile High says the Nuggets are trash. Yeah. Yep. I mean, they pretty much have the number one seed locked up, so I don't think they're really playing very hard right now, even though they played most of their players tonight. If they could get number two for McHale, then maybe they just go young and rebuild. I'm not sure last time the Nets had a young guy like that they could rebuild around. I still think they try to keep the roster somewhat good. Um, Rip City says, you think the Raptors blow it up this offseason or unload a few pieces? I think they, I don't know. They'll probably trade OG finally. I don't think they risk him leaving for nothing, especially if some of the rumors even have a slight bit of truth to them with that situation. Um, but yeah. Wombat says, I know a trade would never happen, but how good would Lillard and Jokic be? Oh, there's the Skype tone. All right. Bear with me for just a second while I try to figure this out.
Hello.
Let me put my
weird.
Let me put my headphones in. Hold on, you're on stream.
Yeah. Awesome. This is so weird.
Yeah. All right, give me just a second, guys, while I try to put Tori on here. All right, so yeah, I think they did. Your camera's not on. It says it's loading or something. Hold on just a second. It's trying to work. Your mic's not. How do I get your mic? Unmute desktop audio. Did that work? Say something, Tori. Yo. Did you hear Tori say yo, chat? Make sure it's my heads. Okay, hold on. Let me. Hold on, I'll figure this out. Where? I don't know how I change it in the stream. In the mixer? I think I got it. Hold on. So I put my speakers.
Yeah, but I don't know where my webcam is. Because I see my webcam on Skype. I don't know what's going on with that.
All right, talk again.
Yo.
Okay, there you go. I figured it out. Let's go.
Nice.
Let me try calling you back because it's. Hold on just a second.
Okay. Let me make sure I have the right mic connected to. Yeah, I do. Okay. Mix good, no video.
There you are. Let's go.
My video up now?
Yeah.
Dope. Okay, cool. I'm big.
It looks very unfocused.
I'm big.
Does that look okay?
It looks good enough. We're chilling.
Thanks, Marcus. Thank you. We did it. Did you yam on someone, chat?
No, I shot a finger roll and got blocked. I should have tried to yam.
Yeah. All right. So, chat, are we good? Like, does that work for everyone? Not too annoying.
Tori appeared like a genie from a bottle. Tori has the soft filter on. I don't know. It's just my webcam is normally straight through my webcam. It's not through Skype, so that's what it is. Does Stephen Vaughn block it? He might as well have. I mean, it's Stephen Vaughn.
Yep.
So I heard we almost won.
Yeah. So, crazy game. They're saying your audio sounds different.
It's because it's through Skype.
It's also weird that it's on different sides. So the Blazers were down.
You gotta hide the other Skype feed in that folder, by the way. You remember when you did that earlier?
Yeah, it didn't come on done. Okay, there we go.
God, why is my webcam so big? I gotta back up.
So the Blazers were down 19 in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And then second quarter just started dominating and just went on a run, cut it to 4 before halftime, and then just come out. I think they went on like an 11-0 run or something to start the second third quarter, and like took complete control of the game. And then Memphis kept coming back, and then the Blazers would hit a 3 and then get a steal and score, and went up 5. And then with like 10 minutes left in the fourth, they went up 101-96. Memphis calls a timeout. And then they come back and tie it 101-101. And do you know what the Blazers did? Have you heard?
No. I have no clue.
8 minutes to go. They bench Shaden Sharp. Who had already he had rested at the end of the second quarter, so he had got his normal Dame rest or whatever, and probably normally would have played the whole rest of the game. And it was 103-103 when he went out with 8 minutes left, and a few minutes later it was 118-105.
Generational tanking. Dude, they were trying to tank so hard. I mean, just look at the lineup we had out there tonight, man. Mm-hmm. But our 10-day guys are playing well, it looks like. I mean, obviously I didn't watch this game, but Skylar Mays was playing well the last 2 games, and then tonight it seems like he has had an amazing game. 24, 8, and 7, 4 for 6 from 3. Like, he might be playing himself straight up onto the roster right now.
Yeah, he looked really nice. He had this play back when the game was still kind of in doubt, where he completely crossed someone over, pulled up from mid-range, missed it, but he just looks like an NBA style point guard right now. And Mania came in and he hit a couple threes and just felt like he was confident letting it fly. He doesn't have the best G League stats, but actually, if you looked at like his splits over the last 10, I don't remember if it was 10 or 20 games or something, he had been shooting like 42% from three or something. So yeah, it's and Nate Williams didn't have the greatest game, but he's just like a hustle guy stuff. But Shaq was all over the place. Had some miscues as well, but like he goes all out. He's like a bowling ball out there. Kind of reminds me of Bledsoe a little bit.
I'm just looking at our bench right now. This is the best bench production we've gotten all season.
Jabari came in and played well.
I like that he's hitting threes now.
Well, actually, he was really struggling. Looked kind of out of it, and then Portland called a timeout, and then he just like came in and was like completely different after that. But he had a couple threes. But there was a point where I think the Grizzlies went up 15, and it was like, oh my God, are they gonna go from a few minutes left, like a tie game basically, to covering a 17.5 point spread? And then Jabari and Mays hit back-to-back threes and let them cover. But
I'm just kind of confused. So it's like almost, if they tried to win, they could have realistically won this game. 17.5 point underdog after they won as a 19 point underdog. We saw this team go on that 4-game winning streak before the trade deadline with just kind of a crappy roster last season. And it's like, how do you do that with a coach who's bad? You know what I mean? Like, it's confusing. We have a better roster and we have problems all year, and Chauncey coaches terribly. And then it's like, maybe it's just the end of the season, so these teams are a little gassed, not playing as hard in Memphis' case because they're kind of locked into the 2 seed right now, where you got guys fighting for a roster. So maybe it's just that's a difference, but it's just kind of confusing how Chauncey struggled all season long. Now you got these piecemeal rosters that are designed to lose, and they're competitive.
You know what's funny about that? We talked about this with Stotts a lot. It's like players come in to their system, and they don't know any better. So they're just playing the way they play right now. But if they would have been here all offseason or whatever, they would have been coached, and they would have, maybe Chauncey runs different offense or something, but they're just like out there playing ball. Like they're just, I mean, it was basically like, pick and roll and very simplistic offense and stuff. So it's not, I think it's almost the opposite. It shows that Chauncey's not a very good coach because, like, guys that could just come in and play better than when his coach team with better talent, So, it's like, like if you just showed up in a game, you didn't know the plays or whatever, like you can just go in there and play, and you're just playing ball and playing as hard as you can. Whereas if you were in the system and like, Chauncey's forcing you to run their zone, and it's getting exposed and stuff because like you're not good enough to play in that position he's putting you in or something, and that, like, I don't know, it just seems kind of weird.
I mean, I'm not going to go as far as pulling off a historic upset means that Chauncey's a bad coach, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not saying it matters either way, but I also think I don't know if you probably weren't listening earlier, but there is some things to just players coming in that have that motivation to grind it out to play in the NBA and just how hard they play. And that's why we begged for moves when there were injuries earlier in the season like this, but they were up against the tax and they weren't going to pay it. But if their plan all along was to dump Hart and Peyton and stuff at the deadline and be under the tax, like, I don't get why they weren't allowed to go a little bit into the tax so they could have maybe gotten this little boost of energy from someone earlier in the season. Because honestly, if we had Skylar Mays at the trade deadline, I don't know if we're not talking about being in the playoffs right now. Just something simple like that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect him to play like this. Obviously, if he plays like this, where he's averaging like 18, 7, and 6, then yeah, maybe. Obviously, he's played really well the last 3 games, but he's solid though. He's better than Arcidiacono.
Well, that was my point. Is like we got Ryan Arcidiacono, we're starting him the first game after the All-Star break and stuff like that. If we had he's not even an NBA player. If we had an actual NBA player that, while Anthony was hurt those first few games, like maybe we win a couple of those, and yeah, I don't know, maybe the season turns out differently.
Skylar Mays just seems like one of those guys where it's like he doesn't have a ton of upside, so therefore he's in the G League, but like he can play at the NBA level. Because in college, I always thought he was relatively solid, and his last year in college, he was actually really, really good. He was a 4-year college player. LSU, played with Watford. I remember being impressed in college, watching Skylar Mays. I was watching those games more so to watch Trenton Watford. And if you guys were around when I did my draft sleepers video, I had Trenton Watford as a draft sleeper in going into that draft, just kind of as a late second round undrafted guy. That's panned out so far. The fact that Trenton Watford is able to do what he does, while it's not like amazing or anything for an undrafted guy, it's obviously above average. But I remember being impressed with Skylar Mays, and you just look at his last season at LSU, averaged 17, 5, and 3. Obviously, guys can put up numbers in college that don't translate to the league, but that usually is more so with bigger players. Sometimes you get guards that can score, 22 a game at the college level, and then they get to the league and they struggle. Speaking of another LSU guard, Antonio Blakeney was one of those guys who could score in summer league and was a hot topic when he was on the Blazers summer league team, but couldn't cut it at the NBA level. He was not efficient enough. Yeah, that was what some people were saying after he had a couple good summer league performances. So, but the thing is with Skylar Mays is like he's not a shot chucker. He'll get his shots, but he won't take bad shots. So whenever you got a guy in college, he shot 39% from 3 his senior year, improved from being a 31% shooter the year before to 39%. And he shot 55% from 2, 49% from the field, right? Like that's very solid. Averaged almost 2 steals a game. But as a 4-year college player, it just didn't look like he had enough upside to get much of a chance in the NBA. But in the NBA, the past 2 years playing in Atlanta, I mean, he shot over 35% from 3. He shot 57% from 2. Like, those are efficient numbers. So it's like if he can just come in and run the offense and make basic plays and then knock down the shots that are there and do a little bit off the dribble, that's an NBA guard. And that's the thing with Arcidiacono is like Skylar Mays is a better defender than him. He's a little stronger than him, a little bigger than him.
The offense better, has a little better vision.
Yeah,
Could get to his spots, is a little more shiftier.
Quicker, shiftier, more athletic. And shooting-wise, I mean, Arcidiacono was a really good shooter in college. He hasn't been like a sniper in the NBA. Actually kind of surprised by that. For his career, he actually has a 37% three-point percentage, 34.8 this year. So shooting-wise, it's not even like Arcidiacono really has much of an edge, and I feel like Skylar Mays is a more dynamic shooter. Like he can shoot off the dribble a little bit better, where Arcidiacono didn't take many threes. Only for his career in 60 minutes a game is only shooting 2 a game. For a guy who that's probably his best skill, that's a low volume. So I like that they cut Arcidiacono, even though Connor bought his freaking jersey. And I mean, Connor should have known what he got himself into with that. I think he did. He did. So, should have waited for the Skylar Mays show because he might actually be on the roster next year. He's just a better player.
The whole point was to get a jersey that was going to be like ridiculous in a few weeks. So, I made this point on the last postgame show that he's just like he's the prototypical emergency point guard or third point guard.
Yeah.
And he's eligible for a 2-way next year, so that might be the reason why they didn't sign him outright right now. But unfortunately, he might have some other teams calling him if he continues playing this well. But I think the plan might be now that they're going to 3 2-ways to get him as a 2-way. Then you can have him practice, and players like that are great to have in practice because they compete. They challenge, the starters and stuff, and they're just always there, always, playing hard and doing that. But if Dame or Ant is ever hurt, he's like the perfect guy. Then you have 50 games of that to let him be the backup and stuff. If they're still going with the Anthony as point guard of the second unit type offense. But yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all if he's like a third point guard next year, because that's something we've needed, is just that guy who can come in and do his job like that, no matter the circumstances, as a ball handler. And there were points in this season where we had no ball handling outside of Dame and Ant, and if one of those missed a game and had to, like, you can't play Dame or Ant 48 minutes a game, so when they're on the bench, who's handling the ball? We had situations with like Keon and Sharp and Archie Diacono and those type of players handling the ball for large stretches of games, and I just don't think that was ideal when we were trying to win games.
Yeah, with a third string point guard, you want a guy that's just well-rounded. Obviously, he's not going to be like really good at a bunch of things, or else he wouldn't be a third string point guard.
Right, yeah.
So when looking for a third string point guard, you want a guy with maybe a little size where he can play the one or the two, a guy that can play on or off the ball, a guy that's not going to get cooked defensively. Like, you just want a guy that will come in, just kind of fill a gap and not mess things up and not try and do too much, and just make solid plays. And you have better players around them because they're a third string point guard. You got better players around them to do the scoring, to do the heavy lifting, probably better defenders around them to be the lockdown perimeter guy. So they just have to fill the gap as a role player. And Portland has always struggled finding a third string point guard like that. They've never really had one behind Dame. Even in the Aldridge teams, the backup point guard wasn't even that good. It was like Earl Watson, and then there was Eric Maynor, and guys that just really were not good. Skylar May is a legitimate, man. I think he's playing himself out of a two-way if he continues playing like this, because he looks fantastic. Obviously, it's a small sample size, but if you look at the last 3 years of sample from him, he's barely played in the NBA, but when he's gotten spot minutes, he's been okay. He's been what you would expect out of a third string point guard that doesn't mess things up. The thing is, he's just 25. So going into next year, I don't know. Like, I am down to have him on the roster. Here's my question for you: who would you rather have as a third stringer next year, Skylar Mays or Drew Eubanks?
Skylar, no. Do you even have to ask me that question?
Well, I mean, I just figured I'd ask it so chat could answer too.
Yeah.
But
they don't play the same position. I thought you were going to say him or Keon.
But, like, that's the thing, is third stringers, you just want guys that aren't going to mess things up. The problem is with Drew Eubanks, he can have a flashy play, but he, like, chases blocks. He makes a lot of defensive mistakes. And if you have a good enough team, you want your third string guys to just come in and be solid and be, like, high IQ and just fill a role. Like, that's what Golden State has been able to do. And the thing is, a lot of their third stringers have looked like second stringers and then gone elsewhere and sucked, right? Like Alfonso McKinney, but the thing is, when he was in Golden State, he just came in and didn't make mistakes, played some defense, would knock down an occasional shot, and wouldn't try and do too much.
That's the other thing I haven't mentioned this game. I think it changed in late in the fourth quarter when the Memphis went on the run, but up until that point, they had like 3 turnovers late in this game, total, the whole entire team. So
Memphis?
No, Portland.
Portland? Yeah.
And that's against the team that is the number one defense and creates a lot of turnovers. And Skylar just basically prevented them from getting those turnovers the entire game.
Yeah, and he's like more of a combo guard, or has been throughout his career. Averaged like 3 assists a game in college. He's 6'4", so he has, he's a little slightly undersized for the shooting guard position, but is competitive enough. So for him to come in and run the offense well with guys he hasn't played with and pass the ball like he has is what I think is truly getting him into NBA roster conversation. I mean, he's been on an NBA roster the past couple of years until this season, but I don't think he's a two-way guy next year. I just think, in general, it's not just based off these 3 games. In general, he's just too solid at too many things to not be a third-string point guard, because he's exactly what you look for.
Yeah. So, I don't know how true this is, but I saw something. You know how we signed Nate to a 2-year deal, and the second year's obviously
Yeah,
non-guaranteed.
Jonathan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this ties into what I was saying.
Do you want me
earlier.
to guess? Do you want me to guess? Do you want me to guess as to what it is?
Sure.
What you're about to say? It's so that they have another little bit of salary that they can use to match traits this offseason.
Yeah. So, and they can, if not, they can just cut him.
Not,
right?
they can cut him. Yep.
Okay, but you don't want to do that with Skylar Mays because he's like, if you like him, you don't want to only sign him right now. Plus, they'd have to cut someone to sign him to that same deal. So, I think they like Skylar Mays the most out of the 4 guys they brought in, but they aren't going to do that with him because they're not looking to have that same option of trading him this summer. They actually want him on the team, so they'll go about it a different way. But what I was talking about earlier was the scenarios where we kept Anthony and Sharp, and in this scenario it would be Nurkic too, but they're trying to get between Nas, Keon, Knox's option, Nate's option now, Watford, Walker. That's like 6 players that I think if you had all 6 of them, it's like just enough for OG. Like that's just like right in that wheelhouse. So like I think they're trying to leave it open to where they can make a move without trading the Nurk, Anthony, Sharp, Dame, and Grant group, but add a player to that by giving up basically everything else in picks and stuff. But yeah, it's going to be tough to pull that off. Like, it would be so much easier if we had like a Wiseman's $12 million contract this summer to trade. But I think that's their mindset, and that's why Mays isn't going to sign that same contract. Plus, they'd have to cut someone. You could say Winslow, but I still think as long as Winslow doesn't have complications from that second surgery he had, I think he's still kind of in their plans to keep around.
I mean, the thing is his entire ankle was a complication no matter
well,
what.
Well, I know.
So,
but I'm saying obviously if his ankle is mincemeat and doesn't, what did he have? Some sort of joint?
Yeah, like
something to fix
his ankle was screwed.
Yeah, they're trying to fix something in his joint. If that doesn't work, they're not going to re-sign an injured player. So
he's not even good enough to really, even if he was healthy, it's not something where he'd have to. Like, I'm sure if he was healthy, this organization would love him because they love, mediocre players. But
why else would they not be just cut him right now then?
I mean, why does this organization do the things they do? I don't know. Like, I'm not confident in him being healthy.
Yeah.
The thing is, you can't be confident in him being healthy each year. Like, he was injury prone. This year, he got banged up real quick. Was only 50% himself, 60% himself. Like, his defense fell off. His defense fell off even before he rolled his ankle. And the thing is, he has to be a really good defender in order to provide value on the court. And then he rolls his ankle and he has major problems there. Like, I don't doubt that somehow they still view him as a potential option and part of their plans. I'm just saying I don't think they should. They shouldn't count on him being able to get healthy. I think at this point it would be something where they just need to move on. I mean, if you can fix that problem, how do you know if you fix that problem though? Yeah. How do you know?
I don't know.
I mean, if you can get him on a minimum, I guess it's not the worst thing in the world, especially because you have 3 two-ways that can fill in gaps in case he gets hurt again. I just don't really understand the point. Because it's like you get a guy like Skylar Mays, man. I mean, Skylar Mays is a better basketball player than Justice Winslow. They play completely different roles, completely different positions, so it's hard to compare them. But there are guys out there that get no love, no shine, that could probably do what Justice Winslow does. That's what I was saying.
When he went down, if we make a move like that, we're probably talking about a much different season because we find someone that's just as capable as him, and it's not costing us anything and allows us to move on from him, right?
Yeah, but
We
that's
probably get an injury exception for him or something at some point, you know.
yeah, but that's the thing, and that's the thing with like a Cam Reddish too. Is like he's barely above that level of guy that you can find that's played well in the G League. He's barely above that. The thing is, he's probably going to cost more. The thing is it seemed like they kind of valued him in that trade. At that point, like, if you have a good scouting department, which I saw, let me thank a couple donos. Shout out to Kieran, $5 donuts. He said, do you think Schmitz has a role in these signings? Just a thought. That's absolutely possible, and that could be part of the reason they brought him in, while people just view him as a draft guy. The thing is he scouted Skylar Mays. Yeah. He's probably scouted Mania. Like, he probably knows all these guys. Mm-hmm. And part of his role could be paying a little bit of attention to the G League, too, because he can scout guys. It doesn't just have to be college guys and international players. It can be guys in the G League a little bit, too.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, Draft Express, where him and Giovoni came from, that goes back a long time. And they had the best coverage of draft back in the day. Now you can get that kind of coverage lots of places. But those were the guys.
Yeah.
The Draft Express. They had videos on everyone. Like even before like YouTube and stuff had a lot of that kind of scouting stuff. You could go to draftexpress.com and look at every player's profile and find out their measurements and do all that kind of stuff. So he's got, it's sure he didn't get rid of any of that stuff. So he still has a database of going back to whenever that started, decade plus of all these extensive scouting reports on every single player. So yeah, of course they're probably leaning on him for some of these signings. And then you probably have, he's probably like focused on the draft mostly. And then one of the other assistants is probably like the G League guy. And then you probably have like the international guy or whatever. So like the G League guy will be like, hey, I'm looking at these 5 players. Like, do any of them stand out to you based on your previous scouting to Schmitz? And then he can be like, oh, I like Skylar Mays for this role then. And that's how you get good pickups in my mind. You have different views, but they all can kind of give their input and agree. So I don't know if Schmitz is solely responsible, but I'm sure they're leaning heavily on a lot of his previous scouting.
Yeah, but that's also part of the reason why I'm known as Mr. Negative in regards to picking up guys like Justice Winslow and Cam Reddish and valuing them. It's just, you can find a Max Strus, a Gabe Vincent, and those are just 2 guys on Miami, for example. But if you look at teams, Fred VanVleet was an undrafted free agent. Like, you can find fringe rotational level players in the G League. Like, it's not like there's a huge gap between fringe rotation players and G League players. There's really not, because a lot of non-rotation players are young players who are maybe worse than some of the best G League guys, but they're 19 or 20, so they have long-term upside, and the organization wants to invest with them. The thing is, a lot of people think there's this huge drop-off between fringe rotation NBA players and G League players, and there's really not. And that's why it gets frustrating when we value a Justice Winslow in a trade. A guy who hasn't been healthy is more than a minimum. Like, his best value is as trade salary at $4 million. Mm-hmm. That's why it gets frustrating when we value those people, and why I'm negative towards that. That's why it gets frustrating with like a Cam Reddish, and people will say upside, upside, upside. He's been in the league for 4 years already. He looks exactly, in Portland, he's looked exactly how he's looked the last 4 years. So that's why I'm so frustrated with this organization valuing guys like that. That's why, I'm hoping that maybe being able to bring in a couple of these 10-day guys and seeing them play solidly and be competitive, maybe that'll teach Joe Cronin, maybe that'll teach this organization that, we shouldn't be sitting here making trades where we value fringe rotation players more than we should, because you can find fringe rotation players anywhere. And that's also why, as far as draft philosophy goes, that's why I'd lean towards upside, because if you go for, like high floor, low ceiling guys, they have to have a high enough floor. A lot of guys that get drafted in the 20s are just so meh and don't have a ton of upside. And it's just like, you can find this guy 2 years more developed in the G League in a guy that went undrafted, So that's something, now that the Blazers are guaranteed to have the Knicks pick, that's something to focus on as we head up to the draft. Is this team, I mean, if they can get a role player that they're confident can come in day one and play a meaningful role and be an actual rotation player, not just a guy that's like on the fringe that, okay, maybe we can get away with playing him some minutes, then fine. Yeah. Chris Murray might be that guy or whatever. But otherwise, they should be swinging for upside, because you can't just find upside anywhere. You can find fringe rotation players literally anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's been always my frustration with Keon is, one, like, they treated him like he was super valuable in that trade, and two, like, he's not going to develop the same way he would if he didn't make the NBA and was going up like the Skylar Mays route, or maybe he bounced a few teams and then was playing in the G League this year. Like, he would have been getting all those reps as the main guard on a G League team or whatever, and might be a lot more developed now than sitting behind Dame and Anthony and multiple players, now, and not getting a chance very often. So you also have to look at it to where if you have high upside guys, but they don't have opportunities on your team, they're kind of worthless to have too. So I'd much rather have a Skylar Mays than a Keon Johnson right now, not in terms of ceiling, obviously, but just in terms of, like, if you're trying to win right now, it makes sense to have better players and more solid players that can get the job done. But that seems to be all we ever trade for, is like, well, if they just get into a certain system, and if Dame helps them mentally, and if Dame saves their team with saves their mindset with his leadership, and if he just gets a starting chance and gets 30 minutes a game, he'll be this player or whatever. That's like all we ever talk about. Every freaking player we trade for is like that, right?
Yeah. And then we're so negative, because that's the route we freaking go all the time.
And then they try to freaking give us this, oh, we're trying everything we can to win with Dame. No, you're not. You're just throwing freaking darts at the wall and hoping one of them, hits, and it's fine. Like, if you hit,
it's fine if it's calculated. If it's like, I think we see something in this guy that
exactly.
other teams don't see. But it's like, is that what they felt about Justice Winslow? Because if so, then I don't trust this front office at all. You know what I mean? Because Justice Winslow is who he is, and is who he's been for like 7 years. With Cam Reddish, it's like, it's not calculated, because they're just tricking themselves with hypothetical upside that he hasn't shown consistency with. It's like an art to figure out which players can pop, and it's hard. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. And that's in regards to the draft, and some scouting departments are better than others because they have that art down to a science, and some don't. But it's also with NBA guys being able to identify guys that can develop and pop, and then also you have to have a coaching staff that can do that, develop players. Like, it's more complicated than just, Cam Reddish was a top 3 prospect and a top 10 pick, and so he has upside. But that's the thing, is we've always gone after those top 10 draft picks in those it goes back to Olshey with Stauskas, with Hazonia. And it's like the front office is just looking at guys that were high draft picks, and they're stuck like on that instead of paying attention to what's happened since then. And that's where it's not super calculated. So that's the thing, is it's fine to throw darts at the dartboard if you're not relying on them being more than you should rely on them. It needs to be something where it's calculated because you've been paying attention to this guy, scouting this guy when he's in the NBA, etc. But then it needs to be, okay, well, this guy, if he doesn't pan out, we have enough depth where, like, it's okay. But if he does pan out, then it raises the ceiling on our team. The problem with how we do it is we need the guy to pan out, because we're putting him as our, we're getting guys that we put as our 7th man, as our 8th man, and if they don't pan out,
or
our
small
bench
forward of the future in Cam Reddish.
Yeah, that's the thing with the Cam Reddish trades. That's what it's felt like. That's the thing with the Mario Hazonia trade. We needed him to be that guy off the bench, and when he wasn't, that bench really struggled, and we still had to play him because we didn't have enough. So that's the problem with how the Blazers do it.
Yeah, and yeah, you want high upside guys, but they have to, like, show you something. But you can't just have all of them. Like, yeah,
it's an art.
I don't get it, man. but that's part of like this process. So they're identifying, they're finding guys, you know, these 4 guys they brought in that all have kind of, you know, positive attributes, and you could see how they could be competent players. But they haven't done that in any other aspect. And then you go back to the trade deadline, and you're willing to take a chance on all these players, but you're not willing to take a chance on the second pick of the draft who's 7 feet tall and can do a lot of things that no other player on your team can. And, you know, has been injured a lot his first few years.
Which is why he looks like a bust. It's not like he's played consistently and just looked bad. Like,
and he's not a... He could still be a bust. He could still never, you know, make it more than a couple more years in the league. But I would much rather bank on that and have that possibility with the higher ceiling, the fit need wise for a big man and all that kind of stuff than just keep throwing darts at players that are in their 4th year and or longer and haven't proven anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get frustrated when we build rosters like that. That's the thing that frustrates me with all the people that love to say I'm negative is it's very clear what I'm negative about. Mm-hmm. Like there's a pattern to what I'm negative about. It should be very obvious what I'm tired of. Yeah. I'm tired of the Cam Reddish, Justice Winslow, going back to Mario Hezonja, Nick Stauskas type moves. And I'll sit here and name players that I think could be good under the radar pickups. But that's the thing is if it's a good under the radar pickup for a guy that maybe hasn't proven he can be a rotation player yet, okay, well, you got to try and fill your rotation if you're trying to win, Eric, because that's the important thing here. If we're the Pistons, it doesn't matter. Right? You can just
take as many chances as you want.
Yeah, because you're going to lose and you kind of want to lose because you're rebuilding. But when you're trying to win, can't rely on guys that haven't proven they are rotation players to be rotation players. You can't. Like when the Warriors brought in Gary Payton II, as much as we hate him, like he was good for them the year before we signed him.
Yeah.
But they weren't relying on him being that guy going into that season.
Well, he wasn't even on the team. Remember?
Exactly.
They did not. He was with their team in training camp. They cut him. And he volunteered to be like a video coordinator or something just so he could stick around the team in hopes that they would one day need him. And then he didn't even really start playing until like January last year.
Yep. That's the thing is he panned out and he helped their team, but they weren't solely relying on that. Mm-hmm. So it's very clear what I don't like. I don't like bringing in guys that have proven that you can't rely on them to be rotation players, and then we sit there and say, okay, they're going to be our 8th man, they're going to be our 7th man, they're going to be our 9th man. So, like the Larry Nance Jr. trade I liked. Mm-hmm. He didn't pan out, but that was because of other reasons. That wasn't his fault. Like, he's a good role player. He should be in a rotation. In the year before, he was really good, and injuries might have turned him into, might have taken his game down a notch, right? But that's not his fault. Like, he's a surefire rotation player. When we traded that first for him, I was completely fine with that. The only thing I didn't like was the stupid protections on him, which we're still paying the price for. But I was fine with that move. I was asking for that move a month before it happened.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is go after guys that you're confident and have proven they can be in the rotation on solid teams. If you get guys like that, then you should have a competent bench because you got Sharp, who's looking great. It should be, I think if he's a 6-man next year, he's going to be a top 5 candidate for 6-man of the year. Mm-hmm. And he's your offensive firepower. That's usually the hardest thing to find.
Yeah.
Now just fill it in with guys that can get the job done, knock down threes, play some defense, and then get a defensive 3. Maybe, I liked your idea of maybe overpaying for defense because that's the thing. This team just needs defense. If you can get OG and Claxton, I'm willing to overpay a little bit for that, Yeah. But just try and maximize the defense with the starters and then just get good, solid 2-way role players off the bench. And you're probably talking about a different team. So that's what I want. Going into the offseason, I'm ready for who's a guy that was drafted 4 or 5 years ago in the lottery that hasn't really panned out. I'm ready for like Frank Ntilikina to be our backup point guard going into next year and our 7th man.
That's going on 6 years now, so you probably want someone in the last 4, so it's still like a rookie deal.
Yeah. Cheap. Because that's a big deal for us.
I mean, Wiseman is that guy. How about, Sadiq Bey could have been that guy.
I mean, Sadiq Bey's actually had a year where he
I know.
was like rotation level.
Yeah. We
it's
did
not
have
even that
Chris
high of a
Dunn.
bar.
We did have.
Yeah, Chris Dunn.
We had Dennis Smith Jr. too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, we didn't rely on
wouldn't be
DSJ to be in the rotation, but that's the type of move we would do. The thing is, DSJ has kind of bounced back this year, playing in the state he went to college, NC State. But I would have been very frustrated if we went into last season like Dennis Smith Jr. is going to play 15 minutes off the bench as our backup point guard because he had proven that he wasn't that level. It's not to say that they can never improve and reach that level. It's just if you're serious about winning, you got to find guys that are established, guys that are proven. You got to stop just throwing darts at the board because, I mean, we've seen it. It's screwed this team the last 6-7 years.
Yep. I'm trying to find somebody.
Yeah. I'm ready. I mean, Kevin Knox would have been that dude for the longest time, and now we freaking have him.
You even joked about it right before we traded him.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Like going back a couple drafts ago, like a Zaire Williams or a James Bouknight type.
See, they're young enough where it's like, that's the thing, is there's a certain point where it's like they are young enough that it's fine, but you don't want to go into next season with like a Bouknight in your rotation if you're trying to win. I think those guys are a little too young because they're second-year guys, right? Or am I tripping? Yeah, they're both second-year guys.
Yeah. What about...
Dro, I don't want Kevin Porter Jr.
Poke you. Your guy, Kira Lewis?
Yeah.
Kira Lewis?
Yeah, Kira Lewis. See, it's hard to find forwards because we've gotten a lot of them.
Yeah. Or they turned out to be good.
Yeah, or that. Or that.
Yeah.
So.
RJ Hampton's available.
Where'd he get drafted again?
Well, he got drafted by Denver, or Denver traded for that pick, and then they ended up trading him as part of the Aaron Gordon trade.
Yep. Shout out to Khalid Othman, Maine, $5 dono, no message on it. Khalid, if you meant to leave a message and YouTube screwed over your message, let me know and I'll read off whatever you want me to, as long as it's, not cancelable. Shout out Mr. Pyan, member for 10 months. Thank you, Mr. Pyan, for the member message. It's a wave emoji and says sharp is him. I like to see the 6 assists tonight, Eric. That's nice. I was watching back his draft profile from Hoop Intellect, and one of the strengths, or like one of the positives, was passing upside, and and like he wasn't a passer at all, but there was like little flashes where it's like, oh, that's a nice pass, right? But it's like we didn't put stock into it because it wasn't enough. Yeah. But we're starting to see like those flashes, but they're more consistent, like one-handed skip pass, like on the money, that sort of stuff. It's like, you remember that pass he had to a Thibault corner 3 where he like zipped it and led him to the corner? Mm-hmm. Like I saw a pass similar to that in that tape, and it was like, oh, that reminds me of the pass to Thibault. So I don't think it was ever something where like he for sure wasn't going to be able to be a playmaker or a passer, but it's impressive to see it so quickly.
Yeah.
Because he was not anybody that looked to pass. He had such tunnel vision earlier in the year. Yeah. It was insane. No, 6 assists, 1 turnover.
Yep. No, he was good. I mean, he didn't shoot well tonight, but outside of that, he was good.
I mean, he was 8 for 18. You know, I was one
highly,
shot
yeah.
for 50%. He was 6 for 10 inside the arc, 2 for 8 from 3. But that's the thing is like,
Yes.
okay, when you're not making shots, are you making plays for others? So
Yeah. Did you see any of the game?
no.
So there was a play where Jaw had this monster dunk in traffic and stood and flexed for a minute, screaming at the crowd. Skylar gets the ball in bounds really quick. I think it was Skylar. Dribbles down the court really quick. Gets to the baseline. Sharp cuts, and he dumps it off to him, and like Sharp dunks back, and then Sharp like kind of flexes to the crowd too. It was so cool. Mays also had a nice drive where he dumped it off to Shaq Harrison for a reverse jam. That was cool. But that was Sharp had some incredible finish. He tried to he had this incredibly smart play where Jackson had just picked up his second foul a minute earlier, and this was in the first half. And Sharp saw him near the hoop and knew he was going to try to contest him. So he didn't even there was no way he was going to dunk it, but he went to try to dunk it. And knowing that Jackson was going to have to foul him basically, and got Jackson his third foul and got to the line just because he was aggressive going to the hoop. And then he had a couple of finishes. One in the first half where I forgot who he drove on, but he bodied him up, took the contact, and finished with his right hand on the left side, almost like a two-handed shot. And then there was a finish in the second half where he took one dribble from the three-point line, and then all of a sudden was at the hoop for a layup.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. It was so quick, and he used his length perfectly to avoid all the shot blocking and defenders, and it was just dude, it looks so easy, and he's just becoming such a good finisher around the hoop at this age. It's really encouraging for the future.
Well, you know what he figured out? He figured out he doesn't have to completely beat somebody to the rim or the backboard in order to finish. Mm-hmm. And that was impressive. A couple of the finishes he had on Gobert, it's not where he's trying to beat him, under him, get to the backboard as soon as possible. I mean, he had one really crafty, the one where he went up with his right hand and then switched to his left under Gobert's arm. But there was a couple of drives where he's just not even beating the guy off the dribble. He's just kind of getting to a spot and elevating with the guy on his hip and just finishing.
Yep.
And with an athlete like that, it's a lot tougher if you're not athletic because it's hard to get A, close enough to the rim where it's like a layup, B, over the defender. But with him, it's I'm just imagining him with a little bit more strength and a little bit better ball handling. I mean, he's just going to be able to drive to a spot and rise over people and finish where the defender was able to stay with him the entire way, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. When you talk about athletes, people always focus on vertical jump, and I always say, you got to look at more than that. Mm-hmm. Some guy, you can have two guys with a 45-inch vertical, but one guy can drive with a guy on his hip, stop kind of at the block and rise up 40 inches into the air and finish, where the other guy with a 45-inch vertical, if everything's perfect, drives to that same spot and gets 30 inches off the ground because somebody's on his hip and it's the way they're running into it. Keon Johnson. Yep, exactly. Perfect example. So that's the thing is everybody gets all excited at combine vertical jump numbers, but functional athleticism in basketball matters. And that's what excites me about Sharp. Is he's a great athlete, of course. It makes things happen with that vertical leaping ability, but also it's functional. He's able to get up out of different footworks, off of one, off of two, with somebody on his hip, off the drive. He's his athleticism has versatility, if that makes sense. Yeah. Is probably the easiest way to describe it.
Well, and then after last game, you heard him in the post-game conference say that he watched film and he thought he could finish a certain way around Rudy Gobert and then implemented it immediately the next day in a game. What 19-year-old's doing that? You know what I mean? That's a special skill to not obviously film study is important, but you can't just watch film and then go out and think you're going to be better. You have to know how that applies to your game and how you can implement that. And that's really encouraging to me. If he can just, like, the greats are like this, where they can just watch a few plays of someone and learn how to respond to their certain way they play or whatever, just by watching a couple like minutes of film on someone. Like, that's truly special right there, and hopefully that bodes well for his future.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing is he came out of nowhere in high school. I know we're kind of getting we forget the story, you know. Now it's like he's writing his own story as a rookie in the NBA. That's what we're focused on. But remember, he was not a top 100 player like his junior year, or at the start of his junior year. And then he came out of nowhere. Like by the end of his junior year, the dates might be slightly off, but like at the end of his junior year, he was the number one player in the country. So he didn't take basketball seriously until high school. He improved so rapidly in high school. And with guys like that, normally you don't expect that to continue in the NBA. But for him, I know it's an easy situation and no pressure, and he's like the guy and this and that. But dude, he looks night and day different from the start of the season. And the thing is, he didn't even play bad at the start of the season. Like, he was shooting the ball great, but that's the thing is, he was shooting the ball great, and he would get out on the break and dunk. But like his off the dribble stuff, his passing, his creation looks night and day different. At the start of the season, he couldn't get by anyone.
Yeah.
Half the time he tried, he lost the ball.
Mm-hmm. Now he's like their main offense down the stretch of games, and
yeah, so
actually
now he's
excelling in it.
I'm watching film on Rudy Gobert and figured out how to finish off him watching film. Like, dude, I know his interviews. You know, we talked about it before the season. Like, were or before he was drafted, were a little bit off-putting because it was just weird. You know, he's a quiet guy. We all know the interviews and that sort of thing. And we talked about it. But when a guy improves that rapidly, and you talk about this for college players, like when a guy takes a jump from a freshman year to a sophomore year, you know, like you like those guys more. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Mathurin was one of those guys. He's looked good. The thing is, Halliburton. The thing is he did that in high school. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, he's continued that in the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't like. What do you attribute that to? Is he just like that smart of a player that he can just figure it out? Is he like? What's the reason for that? Because it's massive improvement.
I think it's just some people just have that in them, if that makes sense. It's just that it factor that's hard to describe. You know, it's like, and yeah, I thought it was the complete opposite, and I've said many times that I feel like his agent did him a huge disservice by having him even interview, because you saw Mathurin just leave after workouts and not interview at all. And I felt like if Sharp would have just done that, that would have maybe improved his draft stock a little bit. But maybe there was something to, he wanted to be here and felt welcome here and stuff, and thought this was a good spot for him. But I just felt like he didn't understand, like, because they were asking him basic stuff like, what do you think about, you know, this team's heavy pick and roll offense? And he didn't even seem like he knew what a pick and roll was in interviews. And I don't know if he was just that nervous about it or not, but like sometimes like people can just play ball, you know, they just know how to play. And I think we're seeing that he just, it's kind of like a nonchalant, casual type of thing with him, but like he just knows how to do it. So it's like, it doesn't seem like it's something important to him, but like it is, like if you're talking about him becoming an elite player, because I find it hard to believe that there are many really good to great players that don't have that kind of special ability to see stuff before it happens, to visualize yourself doing things and then going out and making that happen, to learning tendencies quickly. You can put in time and learn those things, but some people it's just like a natural thing. So I'm very happy that I was completely 100% wrong on that, and it seems like he's actually understands the game very well, as opposed to what it seemed like pre-draft process.
Yeah, I mean, this has been as successful of a season as I could have hoped from him. I think it honestly in a redraft, maybe you could say this is biased, but in a redraft, I'd take him number 2 because like I know there's other guys that have had better rookie seasons, but his upside and how fast and rapidly he improved this season, I'd take him number 2.
Yeah, I don't think that's like crazy or anything. I think a lot of people would agree with that, especially Blazer fans right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take him over Sharp. It's just crazy though,
Man.
because remember the conversation about how like number 7 isn't going to be valuable enough, and you got to trade the pick because Dame and blah 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 blah. Dude, Sharp next season. I mean, if he continues at this rate, I mean, he could be more helpful next season than anything we could have traded that pick straight up for. Now, like OG Anunoby was talking, obviously he'd be a huge help, but they were asking for more.
Yeah.
And that's why I get tired of the conversation around the draft where it's like people that don't pay attention to the draft, don't pay attention to prospects, just sit there and say, you have to trade this pick because blah, 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 blah. Like, Jalen Williams would have helped this team a ton this year. He was drafted 12th, and people thought that might have been a little bit of a reach, actually. But he was drafted 12th, and he's been phenomenal. Now, it's risky because you might get a guy who you might get a Johnny Davis, right?
Yeah.
But that's where it's like, having a good scouting department is extremely valuable because, dude, I'm so glad we didn't trade that pick. We were discussing how we might trade that pick for Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
With 1 year left on his contract, without knowing how he'd work here, fit here, without him being the perfect type of defender that we need, extension looming, we were worried about trading the 7th pick for him. and a lot of people were just like, that's the forward that Dame's needed for so long. And I understand why people wanted Jeremy Grant, but you take a chance on upside.
Yeah.
100 times out of 100, because Sharp, the way he's developed, has changed the... If we had Johnny Davis or something, you know how bad it'd be right now? The fact that Sharp's developed has actually given me hope for the future and has made this season, while it is still a failure in totality, it at least makes the future a lot brighter and different.
Can we please luck into that same type of person, though, only as a forward and or a center? Like, please, somehow during this draft, like, whether that's Wembanyama or... You know, Hendricks becomes the next good role player forward, or you know, whoever it is, yeah, Lively or whatever. Like
at this point, Lively, I want him. He's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna fall into the 20s.
Oh, he's not gonna fall, but
I want Derek Lively.
Mm-hmm.
I want Derek Lively. I think he is. I'm very confident in him becoming a starter.
Yeah.
Because his rim protection is going to be really, really good, bare minimum, and he's like agile and can finish. Even if nothing else, no other parts of his game pan out, that's still a good NBA center. A little bit switchable. Like his floor to me is like at least a good backup, probably right away. His upside is like he makes good short roll passes, like has flashes of good playmaking. Has flashes of a jumper, like has all these flashes, and it's like if he could actually tap into that and develop that, he could be, what's stopping him from being Jared Allen with potentially a little more than a jumper? You know what I mean? Like he has that sort of upside.
Yeah.
So high floor, high upside guys, especially at the center spot.
Yeah.
You absolutely take.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be in my top 15. I already know.
Yeah,
I love Lively.
For sure.
You look at like Mark Williams last year going 15th. Lively, I think, is a better prospect than him. So that's my guy right now.
When Williams got minutes, he looked really good on defense too. Like he actually looked mobile, could stay in front of guys. That was one of my. I had him a lot higher than you did, but one of my things with Mark was I didn't think he was quick enough laterally on the perimeter, but he was actually a lot quicker than it seemed this year. So
the thing is we were low on Walker Kessler too, because we just didn't think he'd be able to defend in the pick and roll or have a good enough foot speed, and he's been fine.
Yeah.
And he's been a great rim protector. Like, we haven't talked on air about Klingon from UConn, and I assume he's going back to UConn. But if he entered the draft, I would be willing to take him with the Knicks pick. Easily. I would be happy with that.
I'm not as high on him as you are, but yeah, I see the vision there.
He's 7'2", lengthy, has great instincts. Yeah. Like, what's the difference between him and Walker Kessler?
I don't know. He came off the bench, didn't play as much as Kessler did, so it's hard.
Yeah, but like right away, you're just expecting him to be a bench center.
Yeah,
he's at least I think he'll be a good defender off the bat. So I hope he enters the draft because that's who I'd take with the Knicks pick. But yeah, I mean at this point, I think it's clear cut. Like Lively, if he falls, absolutely. If you can trade up with a couple of seconds to take Lively at like 18 or something, you do it. Fixes a problem. In the lottery, it's just obviously we gotta wait for the pick.
Yeah. Shout out to Necron99, aka Sammy Boy, for the $2 donation with that a cat or a fox thumbs up emoji or something. And then he also had another message that said, "I'm just flying in here real quick, like to leave a like, comment, and a cheap sticker. Peace to all my uprisen buddies here." Thanks, Sammy Boy.
Thank you for the sticker. Somebody in chat said, I remember you guys saying the Jazz drafting Kessler was disgusting. The Jazz didn't draft Kessler. The Timberwolves did.
Yeah.
Timberwolves did. But we were low on Kessler. Like, we're not perfect. But we don't get paid to, you know what I mean? We don't get paid to. We try our best, but we don't get paid to know what draft prospects are going to pan out. And GMs get paid to know, and they have whole scouting departments, and they still miss.
I'm still curious to see, once teams like learn a little bit how to exploit some of his weaknesses, because he does have some pretty huge weaknesses still.
Who are you talking about?
Kessler,
yeah.
But to me, a lot of his shot blocking in college seemed like it was just because he was massive and in position. Like, there's a lot of players that block shots. Another SEC center, Bediako for Alabama. Like, he's a solid shot blocking center, but like I don't think he's going to be that in the NBA. He's just not like mobile enough. So I guess I was a little wrong that his rim protection wouldn't translate. But I still think you could, if you spam pick and roll, get him out on the perimeter a lot. If you basically force him to be their main guy on offense and kind of leave him as like double team with his guy, as long as he's not around the hoop, I think you can kind of expose him a little bit. But so it'll be interesting to see if he adjusts to that.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be the one thing holding him back from being a starter, but at bare minimum, he's a really good backup center. And if you can get that in the 20s,
yeah, for sure,
that's good. The thing is, I think Klingon has better instincts.
Yeah,
I think Klingon is.
Why do I care so much?
I like Klingon.
My turn for that.
I like Klingon. Here's the thing. Yeah. Klingon. Or as far as UConn players go, I am high on all three guys that could get drafted.
Yeah.
And I was super high on UConn before the tournament. I had them in my final, and I almost picked them to win it all, and I freaking should have, because I would be $200 richer. Would have won I had them in my free pool. I won our free pool, so that's cool. And I finished second in our paid pool, because I was super high on UConn, and look at what they did. They dominated the tournament. I am super high on Andre Jackson. I'm super high on Hawkins. I'm super high on Klingon. I think Jackson and Hawkins enter the draft. Hawkins, I think, has already announced that he is. Klingon, I think, goes back. But I still have to watch some other, late first, early second prospects Like, I still got to do some research, but I will probably have Jackson as a first-round grade. And a lot of, I heard you talk about, your scouting process and how you don't pay attention to mock drafts and whatever, and, you have all these games saved. Like, you do it probably the way that I wish, or that I should, but I don't know how you do it because I don't have the mental stamina for that. So props, by the way. But I do pay more attention to what other people say about guys and try and formulate thoughts that way. But obviously I try and watch enough tape where I have my own opinions and don't just pair other people's opinions. But Jackson just seems like a guy that'll get undervalued because of his age and maybe potential lack of a shot. But I do think he has a chance to become an okay, average-ish shooter, and everything else is such a positive for me. Defense, athleticism, slashing ability, passing ability. That's a first-round value to me.
Yeah.
So I like UConn guys, and I liked UConn before the tournament. That's worked out so far. I think there's a reason why they won is they got a lot of guys that are just very solid at a bunch of things, play defense, and play their roles well.
Yeah.
So.
James Najee. Yeah, the problem with the international guys is it's tough to know how soon. I mean, if their scouting thinks they're confident he could come over right away and be that guy, I do think, especially if we kept all 3 picks, I was surprised we didn't do that actually with the Jabari pick, which is part of my excitement last year. But yeah, I feel like with how often they've mentioned international scouting being a priority now, I feel like at some point they're going to try to build up their rights to guys or get one of those guys to come over. But I'm not sure where he's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, but they had Kamagate available with that second-round pick last year, and they traded it for a future second, and then at 57 they drafted Jabari Walker, which I'm not complaining about that. But
Nick Thompson, can you please stop talking about that, or I'm just gonna hide you, and no one wants to talk about that here.
Yeah. No politics, and no whatever you're talking about. Let's do a Tankathon sim. So you did a Tankathon sim earlier, I heard.
Yeah.
How'd that go? What'd you get?
We got 7th.
7th? Okay, time for me to do one. Now, I can't show it on the stream since Eric's running the stream, but I will read it off like you did. Okay. Yeah. And let's see if I do better. No, I won't lie. I won't lie.
I'm just kidding.
I won't lie. I won't lie. I
or
promise.
You'll just do another one.
I promise.
Anyways,
you want me to? I already sent it.
Okay, go.
You want me to read it? I don't. Okay. Toronto, Orlando's at 13, which means who moved up? Orlando falls to 13. It's their pick from Chicago, which means whoever was 13th moved up. Who's 13th, Eric?
Is that Toronto?
No, Toronto's 14th.
Oh. 13th is Utah via Minnesota, I think.
12 is OKC. Yeah, it is. Wow. Let's see if Utah gets 2 top 4 picks if theirs moves up. At 11 is Dallas's pick going to New York. That's going to be so funny if they're on like the 10-11 line and if they fall down one, but also that would probably suck for us because that's not good if a team that low moves up. At 10 is Utah, so their pick stays at 10. At 9 is Orlando. At 8 is Indiana. At 7 is Washington. We did better than Eric, at least. Let's go. And at 6 is Charlotte, meaning the Portland Trail Blazers have moved up into the top 4. At 5, Detroit. At
Detroit and Charlotte get screwed.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Hilarious. At 4, Portland. At 3, San Antonio. At 2, Houston. And with the number 1 pick, the Minnesota Timberwolves pick goes to the Utah Jazz.
Dude, if they already got fleeced in that trade, if they lose a Wemby at top. Like, I think Minnesota would take Walker Kessler straight up for Rudy Gobert right now, and now they just got. Wow.
Oh man, they finally, well, I guess they made the playoffs with Jimmy Butler, but they make the playoffs and they win a playoff game. Good for them. And then they make what would go down as, if this happened, it would maybe go down as the worst trade in NBA history. Yikes. Protect your picks, folks. The thing is it would be hilarious too, because like them losing to our crappy team at home, the biggest upset in my lifetime. In my lifetime, I'm 26. In my lifetime, that could be what would cause them to be in position to lose their pick. So then if they then lost their pick, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I would be so freaking mad and jealous of Utah, though.
Yeah.
If they got that lucky. That pick has a 1% chance at the number 1 overall pick. And it won my Tinkathon sim. But Portland at 4, you talked about that scenario. I'd be happy with one of the Thompson twins.
Yeah.
Which Thompson twin do you like more?
Well, I like him more. Yeah, I like him more. Just for sure, the ability to create shots, in my opinion, is a known quantity that works. But I like them both. They're pretty close in my mind.
Did I tell you what player Amen is a mix of? Was that you that I was telling, or was that someone else?
I don't think it was
It's 2 players. You would know if I told you. You know who he's a mix of?
Who?
Ja Morant and Ben Simmons. If you combine those 2 players, that's who he is.
I mean,
the shooting's in between there. Size is in between there. Defense is probably somewhere in between there, but elite defensive potential, in my opinion. You don't think he's like if you mix those 2 players together? You don't agree with that?
I don't know. It's just a weird mix.
It is, but Eric says, F no, Simmons plays like... Okay, I'm not going to say that. But Ja Morant's like a superstar. So if you're talking about a draft prospect, like, he's not Ben Simmons. He's not Ja Morant. If you mix those 2 together, positives, negatives, you probably got Amen Thompson. But I watched Ja Morant, man, and Ja Morant has never been a good 3-point shooter. I'm not saying Amen is going to be Ja Morant level quickness, creativity, that sort of thing, but I think he can be pretty close to it. I love his upside so much. He has the 2nd highest upside in this draft, in my opinion. The thing is he, I don't know, do you take that over
you
fit?
wouldn't take him too?
I'd probably trade 2. Because I think teams are going to want to...
I'm just saying, not just like on your big board.
I'm more confident in Scoot fulfilling his upside than I am Amen Thompson. Amen Thompson's upside is a big part of it is dependent on him being able to shoot the ball. Like, if he can be a solid 3-point shooter off the dribble and off catch and shoot, he's a star. Easily a star. Like, everything else on top of that he has already, he's a star if he figures that out. The thing is I'm not as confident in him figuring that out as I am like Scoop being a star.
How would your opinion changed if he measures at the combine and without shoes he's 6'5.5" with a 6'9" wingspan? Does that affect it much?
Not really. That's what I expect. That's what I expect him to. I expect him to be 6'6", with like a 6'9" wingspan.
Yeah.
If he puts on a little bit more strength, I think he's big enough to play the 3 because he can get off the ground so quick. Like, he'll be able to play vertically bigger than himself, bigger than 6'6". Like, I think he'll be fine as a 3, and I think he's a matchup problem as a 3.
I don't think that's
What's up?
I just think that's a weird fit in our offense.
Yeah, I mean, you have fit questions, but that's the thing, Eric, is like at the top of the draft, you're never supposed to draft for fit. You're supposed to draft
I'm
for
not
best
saying
player
I'm not saying
available.
draft for fit. I'm just saying we're already talking about having to trade Simons because we have Sharp.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see him end with Sharp though. In transition, God, that'd be insane. That'd be fun. He says, throwback to me and Tori like a year ago watching a vid on him on Discord at 3 a.m. Yeah. I was slow on paying attention to this draft, so Reese was the guy who introduced me to them. I have joined your bandwagon, Reese. Here's the thing though, Eric, is like with the increase in shooting in the league, especially with bigs too, I feel like it's easier to fit him in now because you have more floor spacing.
Yeah. I love the Thompson twins like a lot. I know it seems like I don't, but I cannot fathom it working here in Portland with them. Like I just can't see it. Like I think this is one of the worst spots for them. Like we were talking about with Keon, just like
why one of the worst spots? Because I think the mentorship here would be good.
I don't think it works with. I don't think either of them. I'd rather have Sharp at small. I think Sharp looks more like a small forward than either of them.
I don't agree with that.
I mean, Sharp's gonna if they have 6'9" wingspans, that means Sharp has a much bigger wingspan.
Yeah, but Sharp's also what 6'5" and a quarter. I expect them to measure a little taller.
6'4" and a half.
Or 6'4" and a half.
Or according to Chad, he's grown to 6'7" now. That's the new
not
thing.
True.
Have you seen that?
Who said that?
Dude, that's what everyone's saying on social media, that he went on a growth spurt and he's 6'7" now. It's just like people are making stuff up.
That's silly. He's not. No. What? I don't see any difference in his height. He just looks better as a player. But I mean, I expect them to measure a little taller than him with a little shorter wingspan. I expect it to even out. I think they're more competitive defensively I think they'll be more competitive defensively against bigger players.
I don't know. I think they're a couple years away from being strong enough to be good defenders in the NBA. They'll be quick enough to guard guards, so that's a positive. But yeah, I feel like if we do get in the range of one of the Thompson twins, that's a good trade value.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get the right trade, yeah. But it's like, why can't... Okay, so you think Sharp looks more like a 3. Why can't that be the backup, like, 2 and 3 then? Or the backup point, like where the bench unit is Ant, Thompson twin, Sharp.
Because I feel like getting front court players in a trade would be better in terms of winning in a Dame timeline.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I could just easily see the situation playing out where we like trade the pick for OG, and then like 2-3 years from now, Amen Thompson is a borderline superstar.
Right. But I'll say the same thing I'll say about Scoot. It's, to me, they're only going to hit their ceiling as the main player, like the main ball handler, number one option, number one creator on a team. So in my mind, it kind of stunts them a little bit. Whereas Sharp doesn't necessarily have to play on ball, right? So like,
couldn't you view it as like they would be forced to improve the weaknesses of their game by being forced to play a little bit different of a role? If that could be a good thing.
I mean, if they magically become different players than they are, sure. But like, I just feel
shoot.
But I feel like Amen in particular, Asar played off ball a lot more, so he's more equipped probably to play that role right away. I just think in a situation where you have Dame, Anthony, Sharp now, like all capable of being on ball and excelling in that role, I just don't know if throwing a fourth person who is better right now on ball than off ball is better. So like I'm not saying I don't love him for most teams. I have a hard time seeing him just changing everything he is because that's what we need of him to do. Like a lot of people don't do that. If he hasn't corrected his 3-point shot so far, I don't know why it would just magically change going into next season.
I'm just kind of confused because it's like last year it's like, okay, we go in with Justice Winslow and his lack of a shot, and it's like fine. And then
I didn't want Winslow.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you were okay with Winslow going into last season as the backup 4.
No, I've never been okay with Winslow.
Okay, well,
I mean, I think he's been played fine, but I don't think I would never purposely sign him or want him on my team.
It's just like yeah, okay. My bad on that. But Josh Hart, even when his shot was struggling, it's like, oh, it would be so nice to have him off the bench in that role. Even if he's not shooting great off the bench, it's not as much of a problem. He can grab and go, get to the rim, dish out, and be that creator.
Yeah, because he's a role player. If we're talking about someone being a star player, like the number 3 or number 4 pick would be, I want that player to have every opportunity to blossom as the star that fits his strengths. And I just feel like putting him in that position is different than a rotational player being put in that position.
Yeah, I just don't view it as something where it's like you have to rush them into the optimal situation for themselves in year 1 or year 2 in order for them. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of I view it as
completely agree. I feel like if he goes to a team, it's the same thing I'd say about Sharp heading into the season. Like we had our rookie of the year picks, and we had several people picking him as rookie of the year, and it's just like he wasn't going to get, like if he was on a team like the Blazers are now, and he was putting up like 20 points per game and doing all this stuff, been playing consistently all season with a ton of opportunity to be that player. I think like he's looking amazing, like even better than he does now. But like, I just don't know if, because like Dame comes in, right? And he's unquestionably the starting point guard, has the ball in his hands from day one, right? And that allows him to be a star. If Dame goes to a team where he's the backup point guard and playing, 20 minutes a game, his first 3 years or something, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, obviously he'd still be good, and I'm not saying they can't be a star still. I just worry that kind of limits his development just simply by not putting himself in that position very often.
I view them as the best scenario for them would be something like what Sharp had this year. I view them more as Sharp, where it's like they didn't play your college OTE, kind of questionable what level that is, where I think them coming off the bench might actually be a better thing if it's just a year where they have NBA coaching staff like working on their weaknesses, not a ton of pressure to come in and like look like a star, and they can just focus on improving throughout the season. I think that would be the optimal role for both of them. And I also think that in any scenario, like I think they both can be great cutters, lane fillers in transition, ball handlers in transition. I think where the off-ball problems come into play is just with the shooting. And I'm not disagreeing that makes things tough. I just think you take the chance on all the other upside, and then you just work on just hammering out that shot, Because if they figure out how to shoot the ball just 34% or whatever, 35%, which, I'm not 100% confident in by any means, but if they do that, they're stars. They're absolutely stars. And then they can play on or off the ball, because I think they can be elite cutters. And in OTE, you don't have the talent around you where it's like, okay, I'm playing off a guy who's going to find me if I cut, find me on a lob, whatever. So I think it just comes down to the shooting.
Yeah. I just don't think that helps our size issue either. But my problem is, we're talking about, like, Sharp was the 7th pick, right? If we moved up to 3rd and took Sharp, the expectations or the pressure on him is more. especially now that we're tanking another season, if we move up, we ended this season with all these losses. We convinced Dame to sit out. We move up to 3 and take him. I just don't think you can. I just don't know if. Oh, just let him develop on the end of the bench. Like I don't know if that's.
Well, I think they'd play like 18, 19, 20 minutes a game.
But I don't know if that's like the ideal situation for both the Thompson twins or for our team in terms of like what we need to take that next jump.
Yeah, I mean,
it's more of like a surplus of stuff we already have. Like I understand it if they pan out and do what you're saying, that gives us a different element that we don't have in terms of creation and defense and stuff like that. But like the rest of the stuff that goes along with that is all stuff that we don't really need in order to take that next jump. We need areas to improve elsewhere, in my opinion. So I'm not saying we shouldn't take them or we would be dumb to like make it work or whatever. Like I still think the upside is too good to pass up, but I just feel like it doesn't really improve our team overall enough to take a jump, even if they do all become stars. Just because like they all kind of are similar or play the same position, you know?
Yeah.
Or same role.
I do think that they can be true positives defensively next year. I'm not completely sold on that, but I think they can be potentially difference makers defensively next season. They have all the physical tools, the motor at times. It's a little bit more inconsistent with Amen. Asar's a little bit more consistent. Asar's a little bit better fit for helping the team next year. I think Amen has more upside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree.
But like Amen in an interview talked about how like coaches get on him for taking possessions off, and like, you know, that's something that he's trying to be cognizant of, and he knows like next year he has to be locked in, like he has to get better at off-ball defense, and he readily admitted that. Aren't
you worried that he was bad at off-ball defense though, and taking plays off?
I mean, given situation, I mean, Sharp still does, you know.
Yeah.
Sharp still does. I think they're upside defensively. I think they will be good defenders.
Yeah.
And I think they can help this team on the ball, or just given a lengthy defender that can defend on the ball, because we don't have that. So I think that could be huge, just to have that off the bench. And I think they would really help the bench lineup. It's like we talk about the bench lineup, how we would like a bench lineup that plays at a fast pace, and Sharp excels in transition as a lob target or getting shots. Having a guy that could almost single-handedly raise the pace with our bench unit, I think could be helpful. And then it's a situation where, I mean, Ant this year, it's like he has to create everything because Sharp can't create at a high enough level and nobody else can create. All of a sudden, you got Sharp that can create, Thompson twin that can create. Ant's able to play more off the ball with the bench unit, which I actually think could be a good thing, where Ant can pick his spots. It doesn't have to go from like, okay, I'm playing off of, you know, Grant and Dame and Nurk at times, and then I go to the bench unit and I have to completely change the style of play and I have to carry the creation duties. So, yeah, I understand the fit concerns. It's not that I don't have those same concerns. I'm just I'm just okay with seeing how it is because I truly believe in the upside of them, and I think, you know, I mean, there was concerns with like Sharp defensively, guard, you know, this and that, and just seeing how he's panned out this year makes it so it's like, okay, if we're there at 4 and there's not like the right trade available, I am 100% okay just rolling with a Thompson twin. I would be excited for that and just rolling on that upside.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, but my problem is that's at what, best 12 minutes a game, you know? And so that's my problem. Where does that?
I think you can find more minutes for them because Ant plays.
No, I'm saying as the 3 of them and no Dame. Like if Dame's playing 36, there's only 12 minutes where.
Yeah, but I think Dame can. I mean, like Dame looked good playing off the ball this year too.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like I just feel like you're trying to take everything that makes him good and be like, no, become this player in our system, and I believe you'll just change and be good at that. And I don't.
No, I think he can play to his strengths as a ball handler and stuff. I just think, you know, you would hope that he could figure out how to play more off the ball and be more versatile in how he could be used. But I do think his playmaking ability, creation ability would be a benefit.
And then they re-signed Eubanks, and none of this matters.
Well, the thing is, if we re-sign Eubanks, we need as much good perimeter defense as possible. So, yeah. I mean, you would draft him at 4, right? If you didn't find the right trade.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously you draft him.
It's just like, at what point does it like, oh, he can't fit, so screw the upside and all that. We're just going to trade it for, 4 straight up for OG.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not willing to overpay for OG or whatever. But, like, yeah. I'm definitely sticking to my board if that in a no trade scenario. So yeah, definitely take him. I mean, we've argued all year about how Simons and Sharp can coexist with Dame. I just think, and that's fine. I completely agree with that. I just think if you add another star guard to that mix, then you're talking about just being really clunky with how you get all of them the development. And then does that start to hurt Sharp's ability? Because we've seen how much he's taken off after playing on ball a lot more, his usage rate going up these last 10, 15 games or whatever.
I feel like Sharp would thrive off. I just feel like they'd be really good fits for each other.
But like if he's going to be like Kobe, like he would need the ball in his hand a lot more than off ball. So like I don't know, I just feel like it maybe would cut into some of the other players.
Yeah, I just think that would be a good problem to have.
Yeah, of course. I'm just saying, if we're getting the 3rd or 4th pick, though, like, that's going to be the way we go to the next level. And I just don't know how we address the rest of our issues when we basically go pick a area that we don't necessarily have an issue at right now, if that makes sense.
Here's how I view it. This might be the best way to explain this thought process for me. If we don't find a trade with that 4th pick that's like a starter, like a really, like McHale, 4th in another 1st for McHale or whatever, or, the outcome that you laid out with OG and Claxton, like if we don't find that, we're probably not contending next year.
Right, yeah.
So at that point, it becomes a situation where you try and get as much talent and upside as possible, because that's going to give you the most asset value possible to make that trade to get you to contention. Yeah. And if you don't have that trade, then for the future, at least you're set up with upside or whatever. And so, like, if that trade doesn't materialize, I'm taking one of the Thompson twins, and then it's like, yeah, you're probably going to run into problems with, like, fit and this and that, but we're probably not contending anyway. You just figure out those problems later.
Yeah. And you could always trade him at the deadline, or once he becomes tradable, or if he dominates summer league, and
Yeah, or if, a trade becomes available in free agency for Embiid, then all of a sudden, you trade Sharp, you'd have to trade Sharp for Embiid, but all of a sudden it's not a problem. You know what I mean? Like, I think you take the upside, it becomes a situation where you're just trying to stockpile talent, upside, and assets, and taking one of the Thompson twins, obviously there would be the call, and then you just try and position yourself to take that swing in the future, or hope that all the upside on your team is able to pan out, and you don't have to make a giant trade to get there.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is there's different mindsets with team building, and there's different stages of team building that will change which moves are correct. If we're on the doorstep of contending, and it's like, oh, if we have Jarris Walker on this team, we're contending next year, then all of a sudden you can make a case for him over the Thompson twins. The problem is, unfortunately, we're not in that stage.
So would you say all the same thing if we got the number 2 pick and took Scoot?
All the same things about what? What do you mean? Which things?
Like, do you think we just keep him and play him in that same role that you're talking about with Amon?
I think that's even... All the question marks you have with, the Thompson twins fitting, I think it's even worse with Scoot, because he's nowhere near as good of a defensive prospect, in my opinion. I think he can be a good defensive prospect, or I think he is a good defensive prospect, but I don't trust him being elite and having the length plus on-ball defensive ability as the Thompson twins do. So
what are you doing at 2 then? if Blazers get 2 and no trades are available.
I mean, I would look to trade down the 4, see if...
No,
if you're at
no,
2,
you told me no trades are available. We get the number 2 pick. Come on. Go on record right now. Just say it. I know what you're going to say. Just say it. Just go on record right now.
Oh, God. We're screwed. Mr. Negative strikes again. Screw both of them and take Brandon Miller, I guess. I don't know.
No, I know that's not true. You do not like Brandon Miller, so.
Eric, honestly, I don't know what I would do. I have no clue.
Well, come on, dude. You just hyped up Eamon for like an hour, and then you just said Scoot does not fit as well. We get the number 2 pick. You told me I could not trade it. What do I do? What do you do, Tori? You can't take this out. I answered your question.
Which question? Your question. What did you answer? What did I ask you?
You asked me if we have the number 4 pick and Amen's on the board and you can't trade it. Do you take him? I said yes.
That's a lot easier. That's a lot easier than the question you're asking me.
No, it's
the
not.
Toughest question you've asked me all season long.
Dude, I know you are leaning towards saying this. I know you don't want to say it because every other place has
I don't even know what
higher.
I'm leaning towards saying. So how do you know?
I
have no idea what I want to say.
It just feels like you are definitely leaning towards eventually putting Amen at 2 on your big board.
I think there's a very low chance of that happening.
Okay.
I like Scoot better as a prospect. But
so who do we take it to then?
We're the Toronto Raptors of guards, baby.
So we're taking Scoot?
Yep.
Okay.
What are you taking?
Yeah, I think you got to take Scoot and just hope he has such great ability later on that his trade, like we were talking about with AD.
Yeah. It's such a headache, though. I mean, Dame, Ant, Scoot, Sharp. Sharp basically becomes a full-time small forward. I mean, I guess Scoot, Dame, Ant is your 3-guard rotation with Sharp at the... Yeah, I guess that's how you do it.
So I love Brandon Miller probably more than anyone outside of the off-court things, but I just don't think you can take him at 2. I just don't think you can pass up on Scoot's upside.
See, if we take Scoot, there's a comment that says, Rip City Highlight says, if you take Scoot, this channel will be flooded with trade Dame shouts. Oh, yeah. God, taking Scoot would be such a freaking headache.
Yeah.
For so many reasons. And it's nothing against Scoot. It's just like this fan base as a content creator, this organization, the pieces they have.
I mean, we're talking about not being able to trade down. So obviously, like, Tori would take that out too, and I would take that out. I would trade down to 3. If we're going to take Miller, I'd rather just trade down 1 spot and take him than yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I would probably trade down from 2 to 4 just to get, like, 2 second-round picks.
Right. Yeah, just like anything.
But you'd have to ask for more. Like, I would be upset if we only got 2 second-round picks because you should hypothetically be able to get more. Right? But at that point, it's just like we're so stuck in that position, and if we can't do anything, like, might as well just trade down from 2 to 4. Like, I forget who was... Or, I don't know, like, if you have a team at 4 that really wants a point guard, be a good negotiator and leverage the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Say, you can even sit there and say, like, obviously Scoot doesn't make much sense for us, so we are going to trade this pick. You can basically pitch it from a position where it's like, we don't have to have number 4, we're trying to win now, but we're also willing to trade down, so we have a bunch of different options. It would basically be a situation where it's like, Scoot's a good enough prospect that you can get a team at 4 believing that 10 teams are after that second pick.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you're only trading down 2 spots, you have a ton of leverage. You have all the leverage in the world.
Yeah.
So you better be getting 4 and at least 1 first, if not 2.
Right.
And then you take whichever one of Miller and Thompson is left, and then you have 2 extra firsts to go make that splashy trade to win now.
AJ asked, would you rather have Amen or OG and Hendricks?
OG and Hendricks.
Assuming that was the trade I talked about earlier, where it's like Nas, Keon, Watford, Knox, Nate Williams, like those add up to just enough to get OG. Like just assuming that that's the trade. I'd rather have OG and Hendricks. So what, we'd be trading like 4 for 15 or something.
Yeah.
And then getting OG too.
I mean,
I think that keeps Dame happy. We still get a young prospect. It'd be tough giving up.
I'm not thrilled about it. Let me just say that. I'm not thrilled about it. God, that trade could backfire. I mean, you just get 2 high caliber role players for a potential superstar. Anyway. But the thing is nothing is for certain outside of Wemby. I think Wemby's got as for certain as it gets in the draft. But Scoots has high confidence in him. But no, I don't think anybody out there should act like they know for sure that Scoot's going to be better than one of the Thompson twins. Because there's a comment in chat, Jesse, who loves himself some Scoot Thompson, loves himself some Scoot Henderson, which is fine. But he says 2 to 4, in my opinion, would be looked back as an insane mistake. I mean, it's possible, but shoot, drafting Scoot ahead of Amen could look like a huge mistake. You don't know, you know what I mean? And I think if we're just staying realistic, we shouldn't pretend like we know for sure, if it would be a huge mistake or not. Like, it's a crapshoot at that point. You're just basically, it becomes a point where you have a guy who's a better prospect, but it's all projection in the end. Scoot's really good. I have him as the number 2 guy on my big board for a reason, but
obviously I don't think Brandon Miller has as high a ceiling as Scoot or the Thompson twins, like in terms of everything, perfect scenario. Thompson twins learn how to shoot and are elite defenders and stuff like that. But I am more confident in Brandon Miller being a, I don't know how you want to say it, above average to good NBA player at worst than pretty much any player I've ever scouted or whatever.
Okay. What about him or Wemby then? Do you have Wemby above him in that regard?
No, I'm not going to take him over Wemby. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I know, but I'm just wondering, because you're talking floor. Obviously, Wemby's ceiling is best player of the league. I'm just wondering, you're super high on Brandon Miller's floor. You think he has an extremely high floor. Do you think his floor is comparable to Wemby's, or do you still think Wemby has a higher floor?
I mean, I think the only thing, obviously you have to completely wipe out off the court stuff, and then you also have to, the only way I think that would be true is if Wemby is never bulks up and is just too skinny and gets hurt a lot or whatever. But I think Wemby still has a higher floor. He's just Wemby's so hard to even talk about compared to other people, because no one can do any of the things he can. We've never seen it before, ever. So I don't know how you can compare anyone's floor, ceiling, or whatever. Because Wemby, I don't know. He's already looks like he could be a top 10 player in the NBA at times, right now. So yeah, I just kind of take Wemby out of any discussions that.
Yeah. I was just wondering with the way you phrased it, made me think of that question, but yeah.
Because I could definitely see, because we dealt with this with Chet last year, right? It's you could definitely see how a super skinny, tall player has trouble adjusting to like the physicality of the NBA or whatever. Like, I'm not saying like I think that will happen. I'm just saying like it's not like I think there's zero chance of that. It's very small chance, but like yeah. There is some chance that he, you know, as the competition ramps up, he gets pushed around a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Miller can come in on a good team and help them win right away. Like I think he could help a lot of teams like immediately, pretty much like have a Paul George type impact on the Pacers when he came in.
Yeah, I'm a little lower on his floor. No, that's fine. It's always interesting to find where we differentiate on these top prospects, especially since we're picking at the top. Because we never actually had to debate prospects like this until last year, and now it's 2 years in a row, and we love the draft. So
we didn't think we would this year. We didn't. You especially didn't even start this process. Still, really.
Yeah.
And you've pretty much only seen Miller's worst games of the season.
I watched some Alabama in the regular season late.
Yeah.
Not full games. And I'm not just gonna base him off the tournament.
Yeah.
Like some people are like, oh, he's a bust. Look here where he shot in the tournament. But that's just too surface level. I mean, Dame's had 3 bad games, this season. I think he'll be a 3-and-D guy for sure. I'm just not confident. I'm not 100% confident in anything else with his game. Like the creation stuff looks nice. It's just with a guy that doesn't have a ton of burst and then struggled a little bit to finish to start the season and kind of figured it out. For me, I wonder if when dealing with bigger NBA defenders and shot blockers, if he'll struggle to finish with his lack of explosiveness in the paint. And
I think he does have that explosiveness. I just don't think he needed to show it much. But he had some plays during the season where it was like, where did that come from? Like an alley-oop dunk type thing. It's like, oh, he does have some athleticism in there.
Yeah, and I'm not saying anything definitive. That's just where the question mark comes in for me,
Yeah.
So that's where I'm a little lower on his floor.
I just feel like like we talked about the intangible stuff earlier. I just like the way he carries himself on the floor and just the way he plays. Like I just feel like I don't know what the right word is, destined to be a really good player. Like he just feels like he's good. Like he just like knows he's good and plays like he's good. And sometimes like that kind of like not necessarily cocky, but like super confident attitude like type player. Like that's really I mean that does bode well for the next level, I think.
Yep. I do have him and the Thompson twins in the same tier.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically pick what you want: high floor, high ceiling.
Yeah,
and good fit for the team next year, or potentially questionable fit but higher upside. It's basically just whichever one you prefer for the Blazers isn't right or wrong. In the long term, it'll look right or wrong, but it's just a crapshoot. So, people who said the right prospect will say, see, look, I told you, but it's just nobody knows. Nobody knows. I
mean, we're both wrong on the Melo, but we've been right on several players.
Yeah, like it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot for a reason. I mean, no one right or wrong player means you're good at scouting. Look at some of the Bucks draft picks in the years after Giannis. Like they took DJ Wilson, who I was high on, by the way. They took DJ Wilson, he didn't pan out. So it's a crapshoot. But in regards to, if you take one of the Thompson twins or Brandon Miller, it's just basically which do you value more? High floor and a guy who's going to be a good fit next year pretty confidently, or higher upside and a guy who has questionable fit.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
neither is necessarily right or wrong. People look at the draft differently, and nobody's 100% right. Nobody's usually 100% wrong. If you are, then maybe switch to soccer. I don't know. But So that's my view on all this debate, and when we disagree is, it's a crapshoot, man. That's why you got to hire a guy like Mike Schmitz, though. So I like that.
Yeah. Until we trade all our picks and none of this conversation.
I know. Well, hopefully he's been scouting that G League to find more Skylar Mazes.
Yep. Rip City Highlights says he recently watched our last year's draft stream.
Yep. Last year's draft stream, man.
It was so weird because, like, for me, I was just frozen. Like, okay, should I get excited about Sharp knowing that Dame likes him, or are we, like, trading this so I shouldn't get too hyped up, or, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. One of the first things I says, who knows if he's staying in Portland, was one of the things I said, because I didn't know. And I knew, like, I didn't even know how to react, because that was like, if the Blazers were going to trade the pick, draft a guy and trade the pick, that was going to be the guy that they would draft and trade.
Right. Yep.
Like, that was going to be the guy that teams trade up for. So if it was Dyson Daniels, I'd been like, oh, man, well, we probably keep this guy. With Shaedon Sharp, we didn't know. So it could be the same way if we have a pick at 4. It could be the same type of reaction.
Yep.
I don't know. Should I say that again this year? Who knows? Or should I give you guys more of a, like, reaction as if we're going to keep them? So it's more of a, we can play it back months in the future and say, see, this is how we reacted to having him. I'll just pretend like we're keeping the pick when we draft them. We'll see. Shout out Brian Tadovich, $2 donut, 3-hour sesh. Oh, yeah, you've been live for 3 hours. I've been live for 2.
Yeah.
You ready to wrap it up? Because this is going to be the same way it plays out on Thursday, by the way, chat. And then I'll be here running the stream on Saturday and Sunday. Then the season's done.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys want to watch us in the off season, we're not going to stream again on this channel until the draft lottery. So after Sunday, no streams on this channel until the draft lottery. But we will be streaming twice. Happens. Unless, yeah, like what could even happen, though? A trade before the draft lottery?
Usually there's not trades before the lottery, but yeah.
Yeah. So just count on. We're not going to stream after Sunday. We're not going to stream again on this channel until the draft lottery. So if you want to catch our live streams, because we will still be live streaming, it just won't be on this channel. It will be on our second channel, which there should be a link in the description box below. Blazers Uprise Live. If you've been resisting subscribing to our second channel for whatever reason, you can give up on that and subscribe if you want to catch us live streaming in twice a week in April and May, and June and July and August and September. So obviously we'll have the draft lottery stream, free agent stream, draft stream, probably stream the first game of Summer League, especially if we have Wemby. So, we'll have a few streams over the offseason, but off-season streams twice a week. Blazers Uprise Live second channel. Go subscribe so you don't miss those. Because I know some of you have been holding out for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe you don't like picks against the spread. I don't know. But
AJ, it's kind of pointless to talk about trade down scenarios until we know what picks teams have. I mean, we can run mocks and go through them like we did all last year, but it's just tough not knowing exactly who's picking where yet.
Yep. So we'll be patient on that talk, and we'll have videos and streams twice a week. We got time. We got time. We're still filling out the content with 2-3 hour streams to end the season. So yeah, well, Marcus, you can subscribe to that channel because obviously there's no picks against the spread in the off season. All right. I've seen people complaining about picks against the spread. I get it. Don't take it personally. Some people like it, some people don't. That's fine. But in the offseason, no picks against the spread. So those of you who don't like it can finally catch us over there. I want to see you guys over there. I want to get that second channel off the ground a little bit more.
No, Oleg, Wemby will not be a bust. Yeah, and so Thursday we'll have the post-game show after what could be an epic game between the Blazers and Spurs both not wanting to win.
If we win.
Yep. There's a very likely 4-way tie scenario for the 5th through 8 odds.
Dude, I'd be... What's up?
Yeah, we discussed it earlier in the stream before you got here. Because the other three teams could easily lose out, and we could easily win one of those games. So, yeah. That would be... Yeah. Gotta find a way to lose that.
We need to rest Sharp next game.
I know. I think Sharp sits. I think they might sit him. That's so crazy.
Yeah, our 19-year-old rookie. Eric, imagine I told you, so at the end of the season, we're going to have 4 10-day guys. We're going to have a dude named Jonathan, or I don't even know I forget his first name, Mania. Skylar Mays is going to be looking great. We're going to be tanking for 5th best odds with 33 wins, and they're going to have to rest Shaden Sharp because he's playing so well in order to tank.
We also had to bench Skylar Mays in the first quarter because he was going off and doing too well.
Bro, okay, at this point, Skylar Mays done enough, all right? Offer him at least a 2-way. Don't play him. Don't play him against the Spurs. Don't play Sharp. Sign another 10-day guy, please. And Ibubaji, if he's good enough to walk, play him and just tell him to walk.
Yeah.
Pull out all the freaking stops. Because we're competitive in this game. We're competitive. We won the last game. Somehow this team is actually not absolutely terrible. So, John Butler Jr. at point guard. But that might be too good.
Torrey Jones at center.
Yeah, sign me.
Would you win against the Spurs?
Shoot. I mean, I guess if you're on a 10-day and put on a Blazer uniform, you're goated. So I guess I'm dropping 20. If they signed me, hypothetically, obviously this is a hypothetical, but if they signed me, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to go off.
Dude, I would never forgive you if you beat the Spurs.
I don't care.
I'd be happy for you,
I don't care.
I would never forgive you.
If you guys wouldn't put aside the 1 or 2% chance at Wemby in order to root on your guy playing for the Blazers, then you're all dead to me. You're all dead to me. Because if I ever got a chance, which obviously I'm never going to get a chance, people are already typing on Reddit like, he thinks he can play for the Blazers. If I got a chance, I'm busting my ass, bro. I mean, that's the dream. That's the dream. I couldn't. So that's the thing is you never expect players to throw. I get it.
What would you do if they said, we will sign you, but you have to just make an absolute fool of yourself? Like, dribble it off your foot, completely sell.
I mean, the thing is, I would try my hardest because I would still sell. You know? I'll be like, guys, I played community college ball, okay? I don't have to try it. I am not an NBA player. I'm not even a G League player. I wasn't even a D1 player, okay? I am a Vancouver, Washington Rec League player, okay? You're signing me for a reason. It's because even if I try like my life's on the line, I'm going to throw. So just let me go out there and play.
What if there was some sort of stipulation where you got thrown in jail for a year if you made a basket or something?
Jeez, so now it's either jail or public humiliation? Oh.
Yeah, like they're only signing you to make a fool of yourself.
Chat, what is up with Eric's tough questions today?
They're saying if you F up this tank, dude, we do not want to beat the Spurs. We are signing you just so we have no chance against the Spurs. You are our secret tank commander. If that's the only stipulation, you cannot do anything good in the game.
I mean, I'm still trying to go off because it's not like this organization and front office and owner has done me any favors as a Blazer content creator the last 4 years.
That's true. Yeah.
So screw it.
Yeah.
Screw them.
Are you pulling up from the logo and stuff?
Okay, if I'm supposed to throw, screw it, I'm pulling up from the logo. And then if I make a logo 3, then I guess it's just, that's what's up for the game, A win-win scenario, right?
You know that meme where it's Chris Paul hits a 3 to cut the lead to 45 or something? You know that meme? I can just picture it now. You you're finally hitting a logo 3 on your 25th attempt, and then doing the Dame tap. It's you just call timeout just to do that.
Yeah, I call timeout.
It's Tory time. Yeah.
I'd just be running up and down the court if Lamar Hurd is sitting courtside, just talking to him through the broadcast the whole game.
Yeah.
Tell them that one was for Eric. After an air ball.
Would you take some of their candy?
In the middle of the game. Yeah, running down the court in transition. I'm running over, grabbing a candy, unwrapping it as I play defense.
It's not rap candy. It's like Sour Patch Kids and stuff
Candy
like that.
Where are the Sour Patch Kids?
You haven't seen this?
No.
So I don't know how this started, but like right around the trade deadline or something, like Calabro just started randomly having these little paper cups of candy like in front of him, and then like I saw one game like Thibault actually went over and started eating candy while playing, like not like it was during a free throw.
Yeah.
So he's like the ball's coming the other way, he's still chewing on his frickin' Sour Patch Kid or whatever. and they're like making fun of him on the stream or whatever. And then like ever since then, like Calabro's just had this little like row of these little cups of candy and stuff on the things, and like different players from other teams come and just like grab the candy without asking it. So yeah, it's been like a thing the last couple of weeks. Like I don't know how to explain it. I didn't see him this game or last game do it, but yeah, there was other teams like coming and taking the candy, like it was just there for them to take or something. They didn't even ask. I guess
I don't believe it. This sounds so made up.
Chat, back me up. Has anyone else seen this?
You're 3 days late on April Fool's, Eric. It was a great April Fool's joke, but it's April 4th.
Someone please help me out in chat. Have you not seen this?
See, now chat is saying, that's true. Yep, I've seen it.
Kyle says they showed the Sour Patch Kids.
But if that's true, I'm taking a whole paper cup and downing it. Not on a free throw, like as part of a play.
This is the kind of crap you have to deal with when you're not trying to win games.
No cap. Will somebody get me proof, or I'm not believing it? Because that sounds. If you were making that up and I believed it, that would be so embarrassing. I can't. Give me proof if that's real, chat. I don't buy it. That sounds so asinine.
That's why we traded GP2, right? Rift City Highlights, because he was taking all the candy. Final score: Blazers 74, Spurs 189. Torrey Jones drops 3 points on 1 of 9 from 3. He's getting up more than 9 threes.
Yeah. Though they're letting me shoot threes, so if I go 1 for 9, so I'm getting up 90. Rip City Highlight says, imagine the Blazers press squad having to interview Torrey because he goes off for 30.
Got like Danny Meringue asking. Would he ask a question? Or would he just ignore you? Would you just get ignored, or would you get asked questions from those guys?
He would be trying to interview Dave, who sat out again. I don't know how he'd be in my interview circle, but if he was,
Torrey, why did you clap after you hit a 3?
I'd probably just look at him and not say anything. I'd probably just stare at him, say yeah under my breath like Shaden Sharp, and then look at everybody else for another question. Anyway.
Question.
Yeah, next question.
Pull the Russell Westbrook.
Next question. That's funny. It'd probably be something like, why are you even... Torrey, why are you here? You're not good.
That's a clown question, bro.
Go to... What's the saying? Go to hell, corny child, you make me sick. Oh, chat doesn't even know that one. Oh, I like that tweet. So if you go through my likes, you could probably find what tweet I'm talking about. But it's yeah, yep. Man, go to hell, little child. Corny fools like you make me sick. Anyway, fun post game stream, man. Um,
Yes, that was Ventress.
yes. How'd you know? Anything else, Eric?
No, thanks everyone for watching. It's been fun. Blazers, cool game, I guess. They played hard. It was fun. They made it interesting. Made us all sweat a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
man,
are they
that
actually
was
gonna?
that was a really fun game to watch.
Yep. Do you have anything else, Tori?
No.
All
Just
right.
Blazers lose, and that's good. And we better not freaking beat the Spurs on Thursday, or you might see me rage.
Well, this has been the Blazers Uprise post-game show presented by Bet Online. Once again, go to Bet Online for all your gambling needs. And be interesting to see the point spread on the Blazers San Antonio Spurs game. Maybe let's if you're into it, go use the code BELIEVE, get 50% rewards, and put a bunch of money on the Blazers. That way, if they lose, you're fine. If they win, then you can be like, okay, I won money at least. And
I'm rich now. Now I get to buy a house.
Yeah, there you go. So go support Bet Online. Appreciate all of you for watching. We will be live Thursday after the game, and then we'll be live on our second channel, Blazers Uprise Live, on Friday around 3:30. So I hope to see you all on both of those streams. And then we have post-game shows on both Saturday and Sunday, and then the season is over. So we're coming down to the final few days of the season. And thank you to all for being along on this journey with us. And with that, we're out of here. Thank you to all for watching. Hope you all have a good rest of your evening. Peace out. Go Blazers.